The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody, good morning. Welcome in. This is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister in the producer chair. Casey, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. It's not as cold over here today.
No
I
parkas.
actually wore some long sleeve stuff too to kind of help with that. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty good today. Feeling pretty good.
I like the Cal Ripken streak of in the lineup every day
That's
this
right.
week. This
That's
has been
right.
nice.
Better
Congratulations.
hope Costa
One more
doesn't
day.
come around.
What?
Yeah, we got one more day. And then we can celebrate.
Fair enough. Elliot, good morning. How are you, sir? Elliot Rearing, everybody. Elliot Rearing. Yay. I was going to say, Casey, come on. Like, what are you doing?
No, I mean, I'll let you do your, it's nice out weather and all that stuff. That is an elite hat.
Thank you.
Next level hat.
Thank you. I don't know.
Not just a Cincy hat. Turn it aside.
Well, if you look right here,
Oh, wow.
it's hard to see this.
Look
little
at that.
logo, but it's a Champions Grill hat.
The
as
thing
well.
I keep noticing about Elliot, and he was, kind enough to work out the live show at Champions. It's a great time. Love
Sure.
doing it out there.
Sure.
Elliot has a lot of awesome Champions merch, and he doesn't share with anyone.
Well, it's not my merch to share. I have what I have, and then they have what they have. You would have to go talk to Tim, and Tim will give you the merch.
If only I knew a guy who knew Tim well enough to get us a live show at the bar,
Yeah.
and he gets merch for himself.
Well, I was offered this yesterday, and I took it. So I was like, okay,
I can't
Tim,
blame you for that.
Thank you very much. Anyone who wants to buy it, go free. It's like $30, so go ahead, go buy it. Anyway, yeah, today's a good day. It was fine. It's raining a lot. Nothing special about today, but yeah, I'm here.
That's
good.
That's that attitude.
The world revolves
Nothing
Around
special
you.
about today.
around me.
Jacob, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning. I'm doing well. It's
Are
a
you?
It's a fine day.
I like that jacket you're wearing.
Thank you. I appreciate
You
it.
came prepared as well today.
Well, it was cold. It was cold this morning.
In case it was going to be like 10 degrees.
That's
so.
right. It's a high like 55 today. It's really getting down there.
Beautiful fall November
Oh,
day.
I love it. I
Gotta
love it.
it.
It's the best.
Let's see. We're going to talk some Reds. Coming up around the corner, Baseball America, they put out their projected 2028 Reds lineup. And let's see how often they get these right, because we have the one for 2025, and I think they're slightly off, just slightly.
Just a few.
But the Reds, of course, they have a new number one prospect in the system. We'll talk about that coming up around the corner as well. Let's see what a little buy or sell action coming up, and then we'll talk about the Bengals and the Chargers coming up on Sunday. Obviously, we know it's a big matchup for a reason, but a win for the Cincinnati Bengals will do wonders for their playoff chances, and we'll talk about that here more in detail. But before we go any further, let's send it over to Mr. Elliot Rearing for Elliot's Headlines.
Elliot loves three things: Joey Votto, David Bell, and leading
Elliot
off the
loves
bench
three
with top
things.
headlines.
It's just not going through the TV.
Oh, is it playing?
Yes,
Yes.
it's playing.
You ruined it.
Sorry.
Elliot ruined
How am I
Elliot's
supposed to know these
Headlines.
things?
You're not. Elliot's Headlines.
Yeah. I still don't know if it's playing. Here's what's going to happen. I'm just going to read now. The headlines: college basketball. Toledo.
Oh, gee, well, it was right off the bat.
off the rip.
Toledo beat Justin Kinner's Wright State. What's their mascot? The Wolverines?
They're the
No.
Raiders.
The Wright State Wolverines, 86-77. Sonny Wilson dropped 20 points, leading the way for my Rockets.
For
Big
your
win.
Rockets, nice.
My alma mater. I went there. Creighton, they destroyed Houston Christian 78-43. Nobody cares. But Greg McDermott did become the Blue Jays' career wins leader as head coach, so good for him. Hofstra, they upset Seton Hall, Big East. Dayton took care of Ball State 77-69. And Minnesota, I don't know if you watched that game, but sorry for you if you did. Minnesota gets shocked at home by North Texas 54-51. Minnesota scored 14 points in the first half. I have to go look at the box score in the first half. Chatterbox tweeted it out last night, and it was outrageous how bad of a basketball game that was.
We had Mark Adams on the show, throughout the summer just to talk college basketball when they were talking about realigning or expanding. the tournament. He does a cool thing during the basketball season with the do more with less report. So anytime a mid-major team upsets a high major program, he compares the budgets. So the do more with less report, Mark Adams, he puts out, North Texas, they have a budget of about $4.4 million, and they knock off a program in Minnesota that has about $8.6 million. Now, I don't think that's that big of a budget. I mean, again, it's double what North Texas is, as you would expect. But again, I always get a kick out of that when he puts that report out, when those mid-majors knock off the high majors, just to show the gap in the resources and the money and the revenue and the budget and everything else that goes into that. But yes, North Texas 54, Minnesota 51, 4.4 mil. Knocks off 8.4.
I love when those tweets come out. It's like they paid $1.5 million for this loss.
Yeah.
Just like stuff like that. That's the best part about college.
It's very insulting. 3 for 21, Minnesota was at the half. 3 for 21. Tough scenes. Very, 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 very tough. Moving on. Headlines. NBA news. The Lakers, they win 128-123 on the back of LeBron James. He dropped 35 points and has recorded a triple-double in 3 straight games.
Wow, what a great young star in this league. What is he, 22, 23?
No, Jacob, he's actually 40.
Wow.
40
Impressive.
years old, still doing it.
20 points in the first half last night. Do you want to take a guess about how many halves LeBron has scored 20 points in his career?
110.
368.
Whoa, boy. Whoa. Whoa.
He's real good.
This is why, LeBron James, shout out to Michael Jordan. He was very good in his time. LeBron James is the greatest man, woman, or child to ever play in the NBA.
That's right. Ever touch a basketball?
To ever touch a basketball.
I really do like that. I know that's a generic topic that many people say needs to be retired on sports talk. I completely get it. But the more and more that we see LeBron James and his career continue, and we're not yet seeing that, the wall, him hit that wall. 360, what was it? How many?
368 20-point halves.
368 halves where he has had 20 or more points. And 3 straight games of triple-doubles. Is that what you just said? They've won 3 straight. This isn't I don't know. I've always said this, too, about that debate. And then we'll move on from it. But if you play 2K, you go and you create your player, right? Do you create a 6'6" player that only can score and play a little defense? Or do you create a guy that's nearly 7 feet tall, that can run the point, that can play power forward, that can play guard, that can play shooting forward, that can be the center, that can guard all 5 positions, that can shoot, that can score, that can rebound, that can pass? I think you create that guy. And why would you create that guy? Because that's the ultimate player. That's exactly what you want in a basketball player. You don't go and you build a 6'6", 6'7" guard that can score and play defense, and there's nothing wrong with that. You want that guy too. Don't get me wrong. This doesn't have to be, that guy's bad. But let's stop with the lame narratives about that. This is just wild what we're watching. And when he's out of the league, it's a league that's struggling to get views anyways at this point. When he's out of the league, there's literally 0 point in watching that league half the time. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I know that's a retired topic, but it just drives me nuts that that's still a talking point today. The rings. It's all about the rings. All right, Bill Russell.
I wasn't even watching the Lakers game last night, but I was sitting on my couch. I was scrolling Twitter, and it was just Jordan highlight after Jordan highlight. And I was like, man, what is LeBron doing tonight? So I pulled it up, and he had 27, 9, and 9 with 10 minutes to go in the third quarter.
So I don't know what he's at now, but heading into this season, his streak was at 1,222 straight games of 10-plus points.
He hasn't broken it yet.
I know. It's still going. I don't know what it's at now. The next longest streak was 866 by Michael Jordan.
That 10-point streak is older than Alabama star wide receiver Ryan Williams.
Really?
Yeah.
That's terrible. How old is he? 18? 17?
17.
God. Man, that's crazy. Okay, moving on. The Pistons, in their second straight overtime game, they fall to the Bucks, 127-120.
At least they're getting to overtime this year.
That's right. Giannis scored 59 points. In the first quarter, he had 22 of 24 points that the Bucks had. He was the only person to make a shot. The other guy, I believe, hit free throws. So, wow. The Spurs, they win 139-130. Wemby becomes the youngest center in NBA history to score 50. How about that? He sunk 8 threes as well.
He's 7'9",
He's 7'9", and he sinks 8 threes.
We're in trouble.
Yeah, that's right. The Cavs win another one, 114-106 against Philly. Donovan Mitchell was an assist away from a triple-double. They're 13-0. That's the 6th 13-0 in NBA history. The 16th.
You can get him to go 82-0 at plus 100,000.
Yes.
Terrible odds.
Bad odds.
Question, Cavs and Sixers, I mean, that's a potential. I mean, obviously the Celtics, the favorite to come out of the East, but that's a potential Eastern Conference Finals matchup. A lot of star power there. Donovan Mitchell, Garland, obviously Mobley, and then, of course, you got Joel Embiid and obviously Paul George. I mean, what were their stat lines? What did they do last night?
Well, I see now you threw me under the bus here because now I'm going to have to go look it up.
well,
But
no,
I
you don't have
imagine,
to because
but I
neither of them
imagine they
played.
didn't play.
Yeah, neither of them played. Neither did Maxey.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, yeah, and who's young? Like,
He's actually hurt, though. He got hurt in a game.
all right, fair.
The other
fair.
two are just soft.
So they had Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre Jr. That's a name I've never heard of. This is Gershon Ubesely.
Ooh,
Is that right?
maybe.
Jared McCain and Kyle Lowry.
Kyle Lowry's in Philly. Good to know.
McCain scored 34 though.
But like
McCain rocks.
that's
TikTok.
Yeah.
that's ridiculous. Like by the way, if Joel Embiid or Paul George or any of those guys who were healthy enough to play, if they had any competitive bone in their body, you have the hottest team in the NBA in the Cleveland Cavaliers. Like if you had a true competitive bone in your body, you say, probably not going to play in many back-to-backs this season, but we have a chance to end this Cavs streak. A lot of people viewed whenever they went and got Paul George, they viewed that the Sixers were going to be the biggest threat to the Celtics in the East. Now that view is the Cleveland Cavaliers, at least 13 games in. How you don't have a set of balls or at least a competitive bone in your body to want to go out there and end the streak. Don't know if I'm allowed to say balls, but we'll figure that out later. The fact that they didn't have that competitive streak or drive to go out there is the problem with the NBA today. That's a bad look for the league. You know what I mean? It's not just like they were playing some bad team. You had an undefeated Cavs team. You were trying to, you should have had that desire and that will and that fight to want to go put an end to that streak. And they don't care. Like that's what, if they don't care, the fans don't care.
That's
That's
right.
the message they continue to put out there, and I have a hard time, supporting that.
When the NBA has to make rules to get your players to play, it's a tough spot to be in.
And then they suspend the players that don't want to play.
Correct. Yeah, so it's pretty brutal. Also, super chat real quick from Molly. Please turn off the music. Listen, I always forget there's music that's playing underneath this.
Molly's not
Molly wanted her super chat to go to turning off the music.
We had another college basketball headline last night.
Okay.
Gary Duwall of Seton Hall has joined the ever-elusive Club Trillion. 9 minutes, all zeros for Gary Duwall. 0 points, 0 turnovers, 0 assists, 0 rebounds, 0 steals. 9 minutes, all zeros. Welcome to Club Trillion.
How about that?
Big time.
I love when players do that.
Oh, it's the best.
Tony Snell, put him in the Hall of Fame. I do have one NFL headline. The NFL Combine has reached an agreement with the city of Indianapolis to stay there until at least 2026.
That's good. That's really, really good for the NFL. I think keeping it in Indianapolis is a solid plan.
How long has it been there? It's been there for what?
It's been there for a while.
Decade?
It's been there for a long time now, and I think that's a good idea. We rotate the draft, we rotate the Super Bowl, keep the combine in one spot.
Yep.
Everyone likes going to Indy. It's set up so well with the hotels and the convention center for interviews and everything like that. There's no reason to mess with it. I like having it in Indy.
I can never tell when you're being serious or not. Like
No, I'm 100% serious.
I know, but like when you have that higher pitch and you talk fast, usually
I
you're being
also-
okay.
I was
did
with
you-
Kinner on that one too.
Oh, really?
I thought you were making a joke.
I
No,
thought you
I
were-
think Indianapolis is one of the best host cities in the entire
That's
country.
better. See, that's
I think it's Vegas, New Orleans, Indianapolis.
your tone was good there. Like that was your like I'm making.
Was
a
I-
big tone.
was I-
The previous
No.
one was the mocking. Oh yeah, because everyone loves going to Indianapolis.
I
That's
think
how
they
I
do. No, I'm serious. When we had Alabama played Georgia in the national championship in Indianapolis,
Yeah.
and everyone from the South hated it. They were like, "Why are we going to Indianapolis? This sucks." And then we got there, and everything's connected by skywalks. There's really nice restaurants, good bars, convention center, great stadium, and it's a great place to host. I think Indianapolis gets a bad rap because it's cold up here.
I mean, and plus great city. Their quarterback Anthony Richardson, great vibes.
That's
in
right.
Indianapolis, right?
That's
about
right.
now.
Real smart coach.
Oh yeah, it's another headline. Anthony Richardson back.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
UFC headlines. I'll sneak them in there.
Sure.
The biggest fight maybe of all time this weekend. John Jones versus Stipe Miocic, heavyweight fight, was scheduled for last year. John Jones was hurt, withdrew from it. Tom Aspinall got the interim belt, and Jones is now fighting Stipe on Saturday night, that fight that was supposed to happen a year ago. It's the two biggest names in the heavyweight division in the history of the sport. It's going to be crazy to watch, but the main storyline coming from it, John Jones, everyone's always talked for years about how Dana White plays favorites to Jones and talking about how he's the GOAT and the pound-for-pound favorite and whether or not the commissioner of a league should have favorites.
Yeah.
That's a big topic of conversation. Well, earlier this year, the UFC moved away from the original gloves, got new gloves in the UFC. These gloves were built to keep the fingers bent. so you couldn't poke people in the eyes.
Okay.
And I mean, if you're punching, your fingers are bent anyway. There's no reason to flatten your fingers. So
No.
these gloves were meant to keep your fingers bent. They were also harder so that you wouldn't scratch. Your skin wouldn't scratch on the fabric of the glove. John Jones practiced in these gloves for 3 days. He then called Hunter, the assistant to Dana White, said, "I don't like these gloves." Hunter said, "Nah, we'll use the old gloves." So they're changing the whole card back to the old gloves just because John Jones doesn't like the new ones.
That's fair.
So that's a good
fair.
start. And then as press has rolled on for this fight, everyone's been asking him, if you beat Stipe this weekend, do you plan on fighting the interim champion Tom Aspinall? Mm-hmm. He said he's probably going to just lay down the belt and have a couple fights for fun. He doesn't want to fight Tom.
I love the UFC. Don't understand it. Probably will never watch it, but I do like it.
If there's a week to watch, it's this week.
Okay.
It's a big-time fight.
I thought
Who's the favorite?
John Jones, but it's relatively
When was
close.
the last time he's fought?
Like 3 years.
Really?
Stipe hasn't fought in about 4 years.
I'd never heard of the other guy, but this, wow. All right.
When you said the biggest fight of the weekend, I thought you were talking about
No.
our guy Mike Tyson, who
no.
hasn't
I
fought
did-
in quite a while either.
I did
How
place
much
the
of that are
most
you gonna watch,
American
Skinner?
parlay of all time. Mike Tyson money line, John Jones money line.
Love that. What does that pay at?
Mike Tyson's underdog.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm into that gimmicky stuff. I don't know why.
Oh, I love
fell
it.
for the Mayweather and the Pac, even though that was billed as an actual fight. But Mayweather Pacquiao, I fell for that. And I do say I fell for that because that was BS. Like
Yeah.
those they worked everyone. Jake Paul or Logan Paul. Fell for that one as well with Mayweather. I fell for that. And now you got Jake Paul here getting set to take on Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
So I can't tell how much of this is manufactured or not. You usually don't find out until after the fight when they put out all the reels and all the behind-the-scenes stuff. Like, I think these guys are boys behind the scenes, right? Or they genuinely
I don't
dislike?
think so.
I don't think
no.
so.
I don't know. Not this one.
So if not, then this has the – I mean, and by the way, Paul wants to go out there and just knock this dude out.
The
Like, he
argument
wants
has
to make a
always
name
been
for
that this
himself.
is rigged for Jake Paul to win all these fights, and that's why
Yeah.
these guys are taking dives. I think even if this was tried to be rigged, Tyson wouldn't do it.
I agree.
Like I think
I'd like
this,
to think he wouldn't.
right.
I would
yeah,
al-
again, you
I-
never know.
I would only watch this if I was promised a knockout by Tyson. If Tyson knocks him out, that's the only way I'd ever watch. I need to be assured that Tyson's going to win and knock him out.
You can
watch
get
those warm-up
Mike
videos?
Tyson knockout at plus 240,
That's not good enough odds. What's Jake Paul's favorite? What's his number?
like minus 230, 225.
Okay, all right. Casey, who you got in that one?
I mean, I think just because of the age factor, I mean, it's just hard to.
No.
to that old.
We get no
Ageism.
more ulcers anymore, though. He's ulcer free.
And he stays off elevators.
I mean, didn't he have to still like do tests to be able to do this fight? Like, not
Well,
that
yeah,
long
he's
ago?
95 years old. Cut the guy some slack.
That's my point. That's my point.
Yeah, but he looks great.
But he ate a guy's ear like 20 years ago. So don't those like stem cells slow down the aging?
Maybe.
He has birds and a tiger. That should help.
Should help.
I mean, it's wild. Is for a lot of guys, especially your age, who are a little bit younger than me.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson is just the funny cameo tattoo guy on The Hangover.
It's
like
exactly
that's
what Mike Tyson is
that's
from.
who Mike Tyson is to a lot of people that are actually tuning in because this is basically kind of being set up for a younger audience anyway.
Yes.
So it's the funny comedic former boxer with the tattoo on his face from The Hangover that's facing YouTube sensation Jake Paul.
What do tigers dream of when they take a little tiger snooze? Do they dream of mauling zebras or Holly Berry in a Catwoman suit?
I love when you do that. I do. Like, it's been a while since you've just dropped, some lines like that.
I
You
like
got
that.
anything else to send us out?
No, I was good. I could sing the whole song if you want it, though, but maybe a different day. We're late for break.
We'll keep that in our back pocket.
Yeah, just in case.
Off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Let's talk some Reds when we come back. Jason, I did it again. I don't even know my own name.
Jason, what do you got for us next
Jason
segment?
Derulo.
We'll be right back. I'm done with the names. All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner, Casey McCollister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tiss. I'm on very little sleep today, so it's like I start talking
Yeah,
a
you
little
gotta
faster
slow
than my
down.
brain. I do. I've had some good luck, bad luck / good luck this morning. Lucky to be here.
That's right.
But I'm, for whatever reason, in a good mood with that. Didn't get back till about 1 o'clock last night.
That's good.
Yeah.
Wake up, come to work, ready to go.
That's,
Fired up.
That's probably one of the more beautiful drives in the glorious United States of America.
It is. It
Toledo
is.
to Dayton.
It is. As somebody who's driven that drive many a days, I will say that's a top 4 drive in this country. Top 4. I used to. So we'd have different carpools. I'd have my roommate. We would go up together. I'd have another guy named Nick Wells. I'd go up with him. We'd have my parents, my grandparents. Everybody in my family, I think, has made that drive to come visit me in Toledo. The one thing about it, and it's very unfortunate, is when it starts to get snowy or cold. Like, there's always those signs that say the bridges freeze
Before the road.
Yeah. That's actually really true when you go on that road.
Well, it's true everywhere.
Well, I know, but I've never really experienced it anywhere else except for that. And I would go up there, and my car would legit just slide, like on 10 different bridges, because there's a bunch of them just leading up to Toledo. But yeah, I love that drive.
It was a beautiful drive, especially when it started downpouring. Didn't get any more beautiful than that. The
Yeah.
street lights glistening.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just amazing. I might make
What
the drive
percentage
again.
of that drive do they have streetlights? 50?
I don't know. There's a stretch where it's like pretty dark when you get like past
there's
Wapak.
not a lot of street
You get like
lights.
to
I was gonna
Sydney.
say,
You know, it's before
there's not.
Sydney, but like great
It wasn't
drive.
quite Dayton, but when we were up in Xenia,
Yeah.
that drive back was, what, 30% lit?
No, so I would even say that at least the road I took. So I don't know how you guys get home.
Zero lights until the highway.
The way I took it was like some back road, and I legit almost pulled my car over.
Just waiting until the sun came up?
Well, no, because the stars were so clear. It was like
This
looking
is beautiful.
It was. I was ready to pull my car.
You know what
over.
they say? Xenia, City of Stars.
That's right.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Xenia is the city of stars.
Xenia is usually the butt end of a lot of jokes back in the Miami
Really?
Valley. So
People don't respect Xenia.
Or if you're listening,
I don't
here
think
in the Miami
enough
Valley.
people in this area know Xenia exists for it to be the
I
butt of
certainly
jokes.
didn't before this.
City of Stars, dude.
Seems like it.
City of stars. That's all they got. It's the only way that lights up the night. Those beautiful stars.
But yeah, I had to go to Toledo last night. I like the arena. Savage Arena. It's a perfect mid-major
Such a
basketball
cool name.
arena.
It is a great name, isn't it?
Savage.
The
dude.
Glass Bowl in Savage Arena.
Oh my God.
Toledo did it right.
Toledo did do it right. Did you get Tony Pacos? Tony Pacos is the Skyline chili of Toledo.
Ooh.
It's very good.
Oh, Skyline mac, no free ads, but they're doing mac and cheese now.
Yeah, no, I don't know how I feel about that. It's a little. I mean, I'm sure it's great.
Yeah.
I don't know why it wouldn't be. There's already cheese on the noodles.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. Something
That
about
was
it.
just technically all you're doing is adding cheese.
You're just adding more cheese, which I'm always for.
Baseball America, Cincinnati Reds. Serious sports show. Come
Of course,
on, guys.
Of course.
You're pissing Jason off, guys. Let's go. Let's focus. I don't even know who Jason is, to be honest with you. All right. Baseball America, they put out their projected 2028 lineup for your Cincinnati Reds. Yesterday, of course, we talked a lot of Reds because we were talking about Terry Francona finalizing his coaching staff, and we spent some time on that and what that could mean for the structure and just for the organization and just the overall look and feel and vibe of the team heading into the season. But, you know, as far as the farm system is concerned and obviously the pieces that they have in their system, we talked about it last year due to a lot of guys graduating and coming up and being called up. There's not a whole lot left back in the system, or if there is, it's obviously ready to be called up at any time, but what's coming up behind. But I do find these projections always interesting because they don't always get these right. But when you look at what the 2028 projection is right now, we'll pop the 2028 projection up there and on your screen, that's what the lineup looks like. That's what your lineup would look like in 2028 according to Baseball America. And anything that pops up to you, how about Chase Burns, the closer? How about that? How about the obviously a rotation with Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Rhett Lauder, Andrew Abbott, Chase Petty, and Chase Burns. I kind of like that. I like the lineup. But let's be clear, that's not going to be what it looks like in 2028.
Almost.
I think there's probably 4 positions on there I would agree with for 28. Catcher, second, third, and short.
Yep. Probably. Yeah. Catcher, second, third, and short. Maybe not even third.
Maybe not even third. And maybe not even second if McLean's back there. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly interesting. And
Oh yeah, definitely not second.
Chase
McLean's
Burns,
second base.
Chase Burns at closer is certainly interesting. I don't love taking a guy at 2 if he's going to go right to the closer. But
Chase Petty just hasn't. I mean, he hasn't been very good. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but hey, if those 5 pitchers can show us enough in the next 3 years to be there in 2028 as the starting lineup, that'd be great. If Chase Burns can be the closer, throwing 104 like he did at Vanderbilt or Wake Forest, not Vanderbilt, that would be phenomenal. I'd love that. That'd be awesome. But as we've seen before with Baseball America, we have their 2025 projection from 3 years before that point, and I don't know if you can tell, but not a lot correct here going into that 2025 season.
They nailed that Tyler Stevenson one, though.
Tyler
they
Stevenson
were
at
all over
catcher,
it.
you got it. You got it down. Jonathan India at second base. Don't know how, but you got that one correct too. And then you lose me. And you lose me quite literally everywhere. Because not only I guess I should give him credit for Lodolo and Hunter Green in that starting pitcher rotation, but they're in the wrong order.
Man.
All what could have been with Vladimir Gutierrez.
Oh, Vladdy.
Closing pitcher Graham Ashcraft.
Graham Ashcraft in the pen. Who knows? Maybe that shakes out this year and they get it right.
That's true. That
Maybe
could
they
happen.
backdoor into Graham Ashcraft, the closer. But no.
Wait, so they thought Joey Votto would be back heading into 2025?
The starting DH in 2025 for the Reds.
So that means
They not only picked up the option for 24, but they extended him.
that's
into
a tough.
2020.
Keep in mind, too, the DH is not.
And the DH wasn't universal at that point when they put that projection.
Yeah.
They projected that it would be there, obviously. But also, the DH is not being utilized the way that the DH used to be utilized. I mean, you were a designated hitter. That was your role. It's DH by committee at this point right now. And teams across baseball, it's not just assigned to one person. Obviously, 162 games, you don't expect him to be the DH for all. But, that's not a role that's just going to be assigned to one person. I mean, that's like a DH by committee, or at least that's how it's been with the Reds. But ideally, I remember when the DH was talked about, that's what was going to be the savior for Joey Votto's career. It was going to extend his career in Cincinnati because you would take him out of the field. All his responsibility would be is to do what he does best, and that's hit. Obviously, that's not the case, but we saw that it extended careers like David Ortiz. We saw that it extended careers with great players like that. We thought that would be the case for Joey Votto in Cincinnati. Obviously, that ended up not working out, but that is pretty ironic that projected lineup for 25 was put out years ago. Not all of it looks very accurate. But pop that 28 one back up. Because, and I'm not saying that it's going to be accurate at all, but I mean, a lot of those guys, a lot of time has been spent on developing them. And there has been a lot of flashes of greatness for the majority of the guys on there. Obviously, Tyler Stephen, not a prospect. He's a set talent that's going to be hopefully in this lineup for a while, especially after the season he had last year. But you have your Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Rhett Lauder, who looked great in the final month of the last season, who I was worried about calling him up prematurely, of course. Andrew Abbott, who Jacob thinks is a prime trade candidate this offseason to see what's out there. Chase Burns, having him as a closer is interesting. But again, if any of these guys fall into these roles where they are not just that position, but stars at that position, then that's all that matters. But again, Jonathan India, a lot of guys in there, don't expect them to be here long-term anyways.
Yeah, in all honesty, the name on that list that I expect to be here the least is Spencer Steer. I mean, if India was on that list, then I would certainly have him in the number one spot, but I'd be shocked if Spencer Steer was still here by 28 unless he made some drastic changes in the field. He's really good. I don't even know if I'd say really. He's good at a lot of different positions. He's not great at any, and hopefully by 2028, or at least as we're nearing that point in time in this franchise, we are playing a different level of baseball where we can focus on getting better players than that, more position-oriented players than that, and not as many utility guys. And I think that's just kind of where Steer's going to be on the way out. I saw Nick Kirby suggested a potential trade on Chatterbox Reds last night of Spencer Steer for Alec Boehm, and have Alec Boehm play third base.
Sign me up for
Only
that
2 years of team control for Alec Boehm, so give Noelvi Marte some time to get right. I know you're not necessarily a huge Marte believer as we progress through the future here, but that at least isn't a long-term commitment to a third baseman and still gives him a chance to get back to the level we saw in his rookie year, so that would certainly be interesting. The main takeaway that I've seen a lot of the chat saying, and I certainly agree with when you look at the 2028 roster there, the most frustrating thing by far is there's no big free agents or trades. This is all guys that are already in the organization. If that's the case come 2028, if that's the case come 2025, I'm going to be really upset. I mean, I certainly hope we're getting some outside talent and infusing it with this youth to try to put the best team possible on the field. I know the Reds aren't going to go get the biggest names in free agency, and they never will. But there's plenty of guys out there that can help this team, and if we're running in there with a lineup of strictly guys that are currently in this organization, I am not going to be happy, much less in 2028, but 2025.
No, I'm not surprised by the names they threw out. I think we all want CES to be the DH in the future going forward. I don't know how soon that'll be. I'm not as firm of a believer on him as most people are in this fan base. Sal Stewart is a guy I think will be up by then.
He's a really good player.
Matt McClain in the outfield, I just don't see that happening. A guy who's had 2 injuries already in his young career, moving him out to the outfield just doesn't make sense to me. Not yet, at least. Maybe in the future it'll make sense. Maybe in a year and a half it'll make sense. But as of right now, it certainly does not make sense. Andrew Abbott's another name that is on there that I think a lot of people have the idea that could be traded. Andrew Abbott respectfully hasn't been able to finish seasons. He's very good at the front half. He's very solid. He's a guy you can rely on up until the point where you can't, and that's usually around August, September. That's a name that probably maybe won't be there in 2028 as well. But Hunter Green will be here, Nick Lodolo will be here, Rhett Lauder will be here, Chase Burns will all be here. I don't know about Chase Petty. Chase Petty certainly hasn't shown it in the minor leagues yet. Maybe he will in a year or two. Who knows? Edwin Arroyo, that's a guy I don't see starting for the Reds in quite some time. But, again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you start him in second base. Matt McClain goes to the outfield, and I just don't get it. Do you think Cam Collier's a first baseman? He'll move to.
I think he could be.
Do you think he'll move to first base?
That's relying on Noelvi getting to a level of third where he can play every day. But I certainly think Cam Collier's at the corner of this infield somewhere.
I agree. Outside of that, it's just a silly list. You just make these lists just for content. And that's what it is. I'm not taking too much stock in any of this.
You make these lists so buffoons like us will talk about it on their show for 10, 15 minutes.
Correct.
Well, I mean, and it worked.
That's right.
Congratulations,
They did their
Baseball
job.
America.
Round of applause, Baseball America.
But when you look at those too, when you look at that projected lineup, and there's nothing to that, but it does kind of put into perspective just the talent that's in the system now, and the projections for them, and the expectations for them. Obviously, not every one of those guys are going to hit, as you saw the 2025 one. How kind of comical that is to think about some of those names who aren't even here. Some of those weren't even prospects at the time. I mean, Luis Castillo, when that came out, was what many deemed to be the ace of the future for the Cincinnati Reds, and obviously they moved on from him, and they're building around Hunter Green and hopefully, fingers crossed, Nick Lodolo at this point. But with that being said, the Reds, Baseball America did put out the top prospect list, and we'll show you now again the Reds' top prospect according to Baseball America, Mr. Rhett Lauder. Shouldn't surprise anybody right there. I do know they said when you read the article and the piece on it, it was really splitting hairs between Rhett Lauder and, of course, Chase Burns at this point. 1A and 1B, basically, with Rhett Lauder and Chase Burns. How close? We saw Rhett Lauder, great in September. I don't know. How much stock do you put into what he did in September? I was worried about calling him up prematurely. People, a lot of times when Rhett Lauder was originally called up, talked about the recent success of call-ups for the Reds in years past, and I said, but with some of those guys, that was the plan, and they were ready to be called up. Rhett Lauder was thrown out into the fire because they literally had everyone banged up. They had refused to go address, the need for pitching when everyone was, injured, and they threw him out there. My concern was throwing him out there prematurely. He had only had less than a handful of starts with Louisville, but he went out there and dominated. How much stock do you put into what we saw from Rhett Lauder in the month of September for the Reds?
I think without those September starts, Chase Burns is the Reds' number one prospect.
Correct.
And I pretty firmly believe that. I think they're putting a lot of stock into that. And it would have still been close anyway, so maybe that's just enough to push him over the edge. But I think what Rhett Lauder showed us this year was, everything I wanted to see out of him going into next year. With how this year transpired, obviously I would have liked to have him be called up into the rotation for a playoff push at the end of the season. That's the ideal world. But with everyone going down and him coming up before was expected and tearing it up in the major leagues is about as good as you can hope for a first-round pick just a year after they were drafted. So hopefully Chase Burns is on the same timeline, and then we're debating these two like we debated Lodolo and Hunter Green on who's the 1 and 2 back at the Memorial all those months ago, and you guys thought it was crazy for saying one had a lead over the other. Hopefully it's the same boat we're in with these two guys at some point. And then they're both great, and then it's we're splitting hairs for the entirety of their careers on who's better. But at Wake Forest, when they were both in the lineup, Chase Burns was the ace. So, at least for what it's worth in that sense, they've been on a team once before, and Chase Burns was the better pitcher.
I'm a seeing is believing guy. 4 earned runs in 30 innings of work, almost 31 innings of work. 1.17 ERA, as that graphic showed. But I listen, I think both those guys are going to be solid. I'm not going to say who's better than who at this point. I think that was a debate with Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo. It figures itself out. And you'll see it in the coming years. Rhett Lauder will be in the starting rotation to start the season next year. Chase Burns, I imagine, will get in there.
Right now, is Rhett Lauder the 3?
Yeah. Because it would be Hunter, Lodolo, Lauder, then it would be Abbott. And then after that, it's a
I guess that was the
agent.
question. Are you putting Abbott above Lauder going into the season?
I wouldn't.
Okay.
I wouldn't. Just because I've unfortunately seen Andrew Abbott just not finish the season every year.
At the beginning of the season, he's great. So
It's
is he
true.
your 3
That's
until
true.
like July?
That's true. You might be right. You might be right.
Use them through the trade deadline.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We just use Andrew Abbott, pitch him 100 innings before the trade deadline.
Because you need
He
Burns
looks
to get.
phenomenal.
You need to get Burns some time, right?
Yeah.
Because Burns,
He won't start up. No way.
No, he won't. And by the way, when they drafted him, did he pitch anywhere? when they drafted him. I don't even think they utilized him.
I think they shut him down.
I think they shut him down.
I don't.
Too.
Yeah, I don't recall.
know.
I don't think. I think we would have remember talking about
They
his
shut Louder
debut
down
or
last
something.
year when they drafted him.
Yeah. So where do you think? How high? And by the way, let's pick up with this. Let's step away for a few moments.
Yeah, Mark Fetters wants a 2050 projected lineup. Next
On it.
segment.
We'll work on that, Mark.
Off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kenner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett with you here on a Thursday. I almost said Wednesday. Let's just get out of this segment. We'll be right back. More Off the Bench next. Struggling. Continuing on with our Reds conversation before we switch gears to the NFL, buy-sell action, and then our college football picks coming up here shortly around the corner as well. We were talking about Chase Burns, obviously drafted. A lot of expectations for him. Baseball America put out their top prospect list. Rhett Lauder coming out as their number 1 prospect, with Chase Burns coming in at number 2. Rhett Lauder, obviously the expectation is with how dominant he looked in September, has a good shot at being in the rotation for the Reds right off the bat next season. So with that being said, Chase Burns, who we've yet to see pitch outside of college, where does he start? Is he thrown out at Louisville? Starting Dayton? Where are they going to move him up slowly? I mean, what do you think the projected plan is going to be for Burns? And do they need to fast track that? That's the other thing, too. I know we want to see him called up as soon as possible, but if this team's healthy, one of their strengths is pitching. Do you have to fast track him through the system? I don't think that you do. I know you'd like to, but I don't think that you have to. I think you'd want to be as careful as possible with the talent and expectation as him.
I think he's going to come up relatively quickly. I mean, I don't think he's going to be down there for 2 years. I think you're going to see him come up. He'll start probably in Dayton. He'll start in a lower one. You'll get a couple starts there. If he tears it up, he just keeps moving up the ranks up until the point where he's in AAA and he's dominating there. And then if the Reds need a pitcher, they'll go to him. So I do think he'll be up next season. He just will not start up next season, as Jacob said.
I bet he might even start in Dayton.
Yeah, I think he starts in Dayton.
And it's just like 2 starts, 3 starts.
That's what I was
saying.
saying.
Then he can chill in
exactly
AAA
what
for
I
a
would
little
say.
bit. Yeah.
As long as he doesn't get torched in any of these places, then he's going to just keep bouncing.
The thing you do have to think about with him as well is with the velocity that high. I mean, that's part of the reason why the Pirates called Skeens up to start this year. It's like, if you're going to be throwing 103, we don't want you wrecking your shoulder in single-A games.
No.
Like, if you're going to be doing that and show that you can do that, then he will be up quicker. Just because that velocity plays, no matter what. And maybe he will start in the bullpen and work his way up. That would be great. And there's a lot of conversation about him being a reliever going into the draft, which is why a lot of people didn't necessarily want him at 2. But he's a great talent, and I'm excited to see how he helps this team. I hope that they're not too locked in on fast-tracking him. Give him the time to do whatever he needs to do. If he's ready to come up right away, bring him up right away. I'm certainly not against that. But certainly give him the time to do what he needs to do, because I think he's a special talent. And with this pitching staff, if he's in it down the line, and Lodolo can figure out some of the injuries, and we have Lodolo and Hunter Green and Rhett Lauder and Chase Burns, I mean, you're in a really, really good spot.
So again, Baseball America, they put out their top 10 prospect list for the Cincinnati Reds. The top 3 all pitchers. We talked about Rhett Lauder, Chase Burns, Chase Petty coming in at number 3. So he's the Reds' number 3 prospect according to Baseball America. And the reason that's interesting is because you guys talked about it. By the way, that seems high, right? Now, is that a result of maybe the system's just not as deep as we thought? Or is it that
was
they
deep,
still...
and then they all came up.
Yeah,
so I think that's what you're seeing right now. But yeah, I mean, certainly it's not as deep as it was with Ellie De La Cruz and everything. It's a different minor league system now, but it's still, they're working their way back, and I think it's certainly pitcher heavy, which is why I wanted to trade some of these guys. I don't know, not the names that we've said, but there are other names down there. Connor Phillips is a name. There is the Chase Petty. I would use one of those guys at least to trade away and get some real talent. No offense to them. Get some major league start away talent right now. Just because you have so much of that depth. Now, obviously, if you trade away the depth, then you don't have any depth anymore. I understand how all this works, but it is something where if you're deeper in pitching, then you probably need help on offense, right? You need somebody in the lineup that's able to hit a ball. And if you're able to trade some of these guys away because you know you have Burns and Lauder and Abbott and everybody, then why not trade them?
And that was going to be my counterpoint to all of this as well, because, Jake, I think you're against trading prospects, right, when it comes to the Cincinnati Reds?
No, I'm against trading prospects at the wrong time and for the wrong deal.
Chase is with Petty being the number 3 prospect and without feeling great about him coming into the year. It's kind of one of those.
The
where
one thing
you
Nick
could
Kirby
dangle him
did
out there as the third prospect.
Nick
right?
Kirby put it in the chat a couple minutes ago when we were discussing Chase Petty. I guess now's a decent time to bring it up. He had like 2 or 3 really bad starts to start the year. In his final 24 starts at AA at 21 years old, he had a 3.5 ERA last year.
Yeah.
Like, Chase Petty's still an exciting prospect in this system. I would certainly be open to trading him if that's what it takes to get a veteran bat in this lineup or another great starting pitcher to help this rotation this year. I'd certainly be open to that. The thing I've been against is trading prospects at the deadline to go all in on 83-win seasons. That's what I've been against this whole time. Going forward in the offseason and really going into the season with a really good lineup with a chance to win, I'm all for that. You just got to do the right prices because in Cincinnati, with how little we're willing to spend, you don't have wiggle room to make bad trades with prospects. If you make bad trades and prospects end up being good and the player you traded for end up being bad, the Reds are going to struggle for a long time to get out of that hole. So you have to be really, really careful.
The other thing about, so with that, look, in the past, when we've talked about the depth that the Reds have had in the system, we've considered a lot of prospects untouchable, right? Noelvi Marte was one that I actually was okay with the idea of the Reds moving on from if it meant getting a nice return. Many people deemed him untouchable. Obviously, Ellie was untouchable. Matt McClain, untouchable. And I think that the two prospects for the Reds that I would deem untouchable, Rhett Lauder and obviously Burns at this point. Is anyone else, do you put anyone else in that untouchable category? Because I look at a guy like Cam Collier, who has just been fantastic in the early going, one of the youngest players, in the minors, of course, but he has a lot of value. You look at Petty, he has some value. We've talked about the Reds are not going to be super aggressive going out and signing guys in free agency. And really, it's not a sexy pool of free agents to begin with. If the Reds are not really going all in, but if the Reds are going to attack some of the deficiencies on this roster, trades are going to have to do it. Now, you could say you use your Jonathan Indias of the world and that. Some teams don't want a guy that can play right now. A lot of guys are looking to move on from pieces, veteran pieces. They want prospects back. If that's the case, your Cam Colliers, your Chase Pettys, your guys like that, do you put them in the category of untouchable? Outside of Burns and Rhett Lauder, is there any other prospect that you would deem untouchable at this point?
I'd have a really, really tough time trading Cam Collier.
Yeah, Cam Collier's one name that I mean, as of right now, there would be no reason to trade him because you're going to need him, if anything, in a couple years at least. So a year, 2 years, whatever it might be. Probably that's the only one. I you know me, Justin. I'm not going to sit here and save prospects until they come up. If you're able to trade them for good talent, ready now talent, veterans in the league that can help the team. It's the Cincinnati Reds. It's not the Cincinnati Bats. So I'm gonna say I'm willing to trade just about anybody except for the names that we've already mentioned.
You're gonna have to sacrifice something, though, right? Like if they make trades, who are they trading this offseason? Are you all just the veteran players?
I'd trade the MLB talent before I went down. India, Steer, Abbott.
There's still MLB talent that you can trade. So I would start.
Because they're still young, technically.
Like I would like India. I would be trying to sell India right now as quickly as possible. And if there's no interest for him, then you move down the line. I'm not really for the Spencer Steer trade yet, unless what you can give me for Spencer Steer is another Spencer Steer.
The packages I've seen for Spencer Steer are.
If you can promise me I'm getting
awesome.
I'm getting the same thing, then I'll trade Spencer Steer. But Spencer Steer is the most reliable player we have, maybe, and he's able to do anything you want him to do. So
at least at a reasonable level.
Correct. So it's like I'm not in the rush to trade Spencer Steer. I would be in the rush to trade Jonathan India.
Kirby throws Alfredo Duno in the list of untouchable prospects for him. I certainly would agree to that.
He comes in at number 4, top catcher prospect.
Would agree with that to a point. I mean, he's 18 years old, and he's playing catcher at an unbelievably high level right now in the minors.
Yeah.
He was one of the top international free agents when we signed him. That's certainly another guy that's inching towards that untouchable realm, especially, I mean, I know Tyler Stephenson's looked really good over the last couple of years, or really just the last year, but this was last offseason. We were talking about do the Reds need to find a catcher. We might have a really good young one in our organization. I wouldn't necessarily leap at trading him either, but we all know how much catchers can bring back in trades, especially good prospects. So certainly something I would pick up the phone, I would say, with him and see what the offers are if people are calling, but I would need something crazy.
You said you were looking at some of the mock returns for Spencer Steer. What are some of those that you're seeing?
It's all MLB talent.
Which is what they need.
It's
They're
not
in win-now
trading.
mode.
Everything I've seen so far has not been trading Spencer Steer for prospects.
Yeah.
It's been trading him for real MLB talent that can help this team win this year. And moving a guy who's been good, he's been a very reliable player for this team, but at so many different positions, if you could put that level of production into one spot, trade him for a bona fide player at one spot, I think it does benefit the team overall.
All right, good stuff.
I saw some free agent names, by the way, that were thrown out.
Who?
Carlos Santana was a name I saw. I wouldn't be all in on the Carlos Santana wagon just because I don't know how old that guy is. How old is Carlos Santana, do we think? 40? 38 years old. So he's 38 years old, going to be 39 next year. That's a name that I heard. Now, to be fair to him, he's been a positive WAR player for, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight seasons. 3 straight seasons, and then he did have a negative .01 in 2021. But he has been pretty damn good. He's not going to be a guy who has a WAR of like 10, a 4 WAR guy even probably. But if he can give you 25 home runs, 20 plus home runs, maybe that's a name you look at. Maybe. I was watching a little bit of the Chatterbox Reds last night, and former Red Harrison Bader, Nick Kirby brought up as maybe a signing, but Nick Kirby also did bring up the thing you mentioned, which is the trade for Alec Boehm, which I would do that in a heartbeat. I don't know what that would take. I don't know who we could offer for him, but I'd make that move as soon as possible. That's a win-now move, and that's what I would like. If you have to give me all these listen, I understand how valuable prospects are. Jacob said it, Nick Kirby said it, everybody in the world has said how valuable these prospects are. Small market teams need to keep the prospects on their side because you can't go out and buy Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, and Freddie Freeman. You can't get everybody. So you have to have good young talent. You have to develop them. Saying that, if I can trade some of them for ready now talent, we have how many years with Terry Francona? 3 or 4 maybe. So I would like the Reds to try to win as soon as possible, and I would do that at all costs.
Are we sure Francona is just a small window? I mean,
Yeah,
he
I'm
said
pretty
it,
sure.
but he says it himself. He's a baseball lifer. I have a hard I know we have all just right away put him in this window of, oh man, we only get a 3-year window with Terry Francona. I mean, he said it himself. He's a baseball lifer. Now, again, keep in mind, being a baseball lifer doesn't necessarily mean you're a baseball manager lifer. There's other aspects and ways to be involved in the game. But we have all done it. We've all said it. Oh, we only get a 3-year window with him just because he signed a 3-year contract. But I don't know. I don't look at Terry Francona as a guy that's just like, I'm going to go manage for. He doesn't retire if he didn't have the health issues. So it's not like he retired because he was over baseball. He retired because of health. His health is fine now. 3-year window. I don't know. I don't know if I buy into that we only have a 3-year window with him. Now, I will say this. If we do have a 3-year window with him, I think that helps the Reds because that puts them in a position to try to maximize a short window with Terry Francona. So I guess I kind of hope that it is a short window, and I hope that he's made that clear to the Reds because then they would act with more urgency. Okay, we get Francona for 3 years. Let's maximize the time that he's here. I don't know. I kind of hope that that's the case then, but at the same time, I haven't heard anything that indicates that he's just here for a couple years and then going to be done.
I don't think it's a 3-year window because that's when Terry Francona wants to leave. I think it's a 3-year window because that's what Ellie De La Cruz's remaining contract is.
Fair enough.
What good
are to us without?
I don't think Terry Francona's coaching the 2017 Reds.
I don't know. Did you see that 2028 lineup? I mean, come on, dude. It's kind of sick.
I don't know. I feel like the talk about the window is less focused on Terry Francona's contract and more on how long we have these guys locked up on cheap contracts.
Yeah, right now is the window because just of everything Jacob just said. I think
you have a 7-WAR player making under $1 million.
It's a good situation. Like we talk about the NFL,
a Cy Young pitcher making
there's good situations. The Reds have a good situation right now in terms of we don't have to pay anybody. We're just kind of in the coming up zone. And I think if you capitalize on that in the next 3 years, could Terry Francona stay? Yeah, 100% he could. 4 or 5 years, I could see an extension after it. But do I think that's likely? Do I think the Reds are about to embark on some sort of dynasty run? No, I don't. I'm not gonna delude myself to thinking that that's a possibility. But I do think there's a chance that the Reds can go make a splash in the playoffs. One of these 3 years, you have the talent, you have the manager, and I think if you have a front office that's hungry enough to do it, then you could do it. I need to know what happens with the TV deals. I need to know how much money my team has.
It's a shame this all lined up like this.
It's brutal. It's brutal. I saw Amazon Prime was a likely get for Reds games is what I saw.
That'd be nice.
But I didn't know. I don't know too much about it. I would have to bring on Nick Kirby.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of platforms that are good for the fans' viewing experience. But I'm not going to lie to you. I'll take a crappy viewing experience with a higher money deal
Yeah.
than a low money deal and Amazon Prime picking it up. Because you know what I mean? Like, by the way, I do want a good viewing experience.
It'd be nice.
But like, I'm just saying, if
Feels like
the
you're gonna have to
options
pick,
were,
though.
if the options were, hey, it's not the greatest, fan viewing experience, but hey, that's the bigger money deal, and the Reds need the money to spend. I'll take that deal any day over. Man, it's the
100%.
greatest viewing experience, and not a lot of money comes with it, and it's probably going to be that. It's going to be a good view. It's probably anything's going to be better than what Valley was, to be honest.
Do you think if you couldn't watch the Reds on the TV, the attendance at the ballpark would increase?
Yeah, I do.
With the way things with Ellie and the excitement around the team, yeah. But man, the team's bad. Oof. Now you have now no one's watching, and
I
now no
still
one's going
feel
to the
like
games.
it would increase it. Not sellouts, but a couple thousand here and there. I mean, I definitely do think if it wasn't on TV, it would bump it up.
Yeah.
All right, this is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, and ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. We'll step away for a few moments. We'll talk a little Cincinnati Bengals football. They got
There we
the
go.
Chargers coming up on Sunday. We got our college picks around the corner. And then, of course, we'll get into buy or sell. More Off the Bench next. All right, and we are back. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. All right, the Bengals and the Chargers coming up on Sunday night, and obviously a lot's been made about that matchup. I think we know the significance of that matchup. Every week we say, man, this is the biggest game of the Bengals season, right? Bengals-Ravens, it was the biggest game of their season. And then they lose, and now here we are. We turn our attention towards the Chargers, and now it's the biggest game of their season. Obviously, the reason that we keep kicking that can down the road is because the AFC has been so bad.
Yeah.
It's allowed that can to be continued to be kicked down. And I mean, in recent years, I've gone back and looked, like a 4-6 start for the Bengals. They're multiple games back in the playoff spot. This year has presented itself to give a margin for error. Usually you don't get that margin for error. I mean, losses early in the season, the reason that they've been able to overcome those in years past is because they win, and they won a lot after the slow start. They haven't won a lot. I mean, and this isn't even a slow start. This is just an up and down average football team at this point. But they're still mathematically in this, and one of the favorites to get that final spot, of course. But this matchup with the Chargers, for a lot of obvious reasons, huge because, again, go out to beat a good team and be their first win over a team over 500 this season. And I think that's important, too, for morale from that. You know, we've joked about almost every time the Bengals have won, come in, they beat the Panthers. They beat the embarrassing bad Browns. They beat the Raiders. You know, felt okay after the Raiders. But, like, you haven't felt good after a win. You've almost felt better after certain losses just because you've looked good in those losses, if that makes sense. But this will be, when we come to do the show on Monday, the Bengals get a win on Sunday night. That'll be the first great feeling coming in for a Monday show, a victory Monday, beating a good team, a good quarterback, a good coach, a very, very good defense. It's a big game for a lot of reasons, that obviously being one of them.
Absolutely. And I've said it time and time again now after this Ravens loss, looking forward to the rest of the season. I think the Bengals are playing relatively a 2-game season. And I know you have to win a lot of other games in there, but none of those other wins matter if you don't beat the Chargers and the Broncos, at least in my opinion, looking forward at this AFC playoff picture. You have to win this week. You have to beat the Chargers. We posted it this morning on Chatterbox Sports on Twitter. If you beat the Chargers, your playoff odds take a massive jump, up to 54% to make the playoffs. That means you're more likely than you're not.
Yeah.
If you lose to the Chargers, you're down to 23% to make the playoffs. This game is everything. The season does legitimately end Saturday night or Sunday night if we lose. The season ends. It's over if you lose to the Chargers. It's pretty cut and dry. And we've done we're in and we're out and we'll be down after the loss and then we'll map our way to the playoffs and we'll get back in by Wednesday. That is over if the Bengals lose Sunday night. There is no route. It's done. So this is the biggest game of the season by a mile, and then the next biggest game of the season is going to be the Broncos. And you got to win on Sunday to stay afloat.
At some point, the Bengals have to beat a team that's worth a damn. And it's I think it's great that they have 4 wins, 4-6, and then you take care of the bad teams outside of the Patriots. You have to show at least a little bit that you're able to win against a playoff team. They've played close. They've played competitive games against the Chiefs and the Ravens. you have to win the game. You have to win the game. A loss, I don't think, eliminates them from the postseason. I still think there's a path there because I've already conceded that 6th spot to the Chargers. But if you're going to play the tiebreaker game, you do literally have to beat the Broncos, and you have to have a decent AFC win-loss record.
The only game you'd be able to lose if you lose this one is probably Dallas.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's counting on having to beat Pittsburgh twice, and that's a tough ask
Right.
with the way Pittsburgh's playing right now.
I mean, and not just beat Pittsburgh twice. You're asking them to beat every bad team that you play, and we've seen this team struggle against bad. I mean, that's just automatically penciling in the Titans and Browns as wins and giving you no wiggle room, which they have to be anyway. Even if you win this game, they have to be wins. So I'm not acting like winning this game gives you some magical wiggle room. It just keeps you afloat. I just think losing this game puts you literally in a box of winning every game out for the rest of the year.
Here's what happens if you lose Sunday. You don't lose, your playoff chances aren't done. You're mathematically very much in it. You brought up something yesterday when we were talking about the Reds, how late in the season it was not last year, but the year before, you went to the ballpark and the Reds are in the wild card hunt, or they even had a wild card spot. But there just wasn't that fan excitement. There wasn't that buzz around a team that was in the playoff hunt and at one point was holding down a wild card spot in September late in the season. And I think what ends up happening is because fans can smell bull blink. They know if something's for real or not. So here's what happens if you lose Sunday. The fans check out. And we can come back Monday and say, well, you know what? The Bengals are still in it. Mathematically, there's still a path to the playoff, but fans are going to check out at that point if you lose Sunday. You don't lose the playoff opportunity on Sunday, but what you will do is you'll lose the optimism from the fans. Because at that point, we can't come here Monday and say, well, guys, relax. They're still in it. They could still make the playoffs. No, you're not going to be excited about it because you're just going to know, man, this team, we want them to get to the playoffs, but they can't beat good teams. And that's the funny part about the playoffs. The playoffs are where all the good teams go. So that's the concern. Fan morale out the window. It's hanging on by a thread at this moment. But the fan morale, you lose that for the season if you lose on Sunday, even though you're mathematically still in the playoff hunt. That's what's on the line on Sunday more than anything. Fans being locked in to this team, they'll be checked out if they don't get this win on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's not what they're worried about in that locker room. I get that. But from our perspective, that's the concern about what Sunday means as well. It's more than just the playoff standings or where you fall in the standings. It's everyone's going to check out if you don't beat a good Chargers team on Sunday.
And, I mean, call me a bad fan, kill me for it, whatever you say. I don't think I've said it on air, but I've definitely said it off air. If the Bengals didn't have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, then I would actively be rooting to lose games. There's way too many holes on this team. You would benefit greatly from picking in the top 10 instead of picking 17 or 18, barely missing the playoffs. But you have 2 games against the Steelers, the Titans, Browns, and the Broncos. I think Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are strictly too good to lose all those games. They're going to back their way into a couple wins. And then if you miss the playoffs, you're picking, 15? Then what's the point? So that's why I'm locked in on trying to find the playoff picture, because I think we have too many pieces on this team to lose the games we'd have to lose to really benefit in the draft conversation, which is a tough spot to be, but I kind of came to that realization a couple weeks ago, and that's why it's locked in on the playoff picture. Because even if we do miss the playoffs, it's 7-10?
Yeah.
At worst / best, which has you picking 15, 16? Like, it doesn't help
Not
you.
in Kinner's draft, baby.
That's right. Not in Kinner's draft.
You'd be golden. I know we talked about that yesterday, but you'd be golden in Kinner's draft. But yeah, fan morale, Elliot, like that to me is what's on the line more than anything else. Because you win, everyone's locked. They're buying back in. You lose, everyone's checking out, even though mathematically you're still in it at that point.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a shift again. You saw the shift when Joe Burrow came up, and the franchise started to change, and they started to win games. The stadium started to sell out. You bring up the Ring of Honor. The stadium looks a little bit different. You get all these things regarding the atmosphere of being a Bengals fan has changed over the last 5 years, and now you're teetering on going back to like what it was 10 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever it was, 2017. And I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen. There are good enough players on this team to win games, which is why all the pressure goes to Zack Taylor and the coaching staff, because if we see the talent there at least on one side of the football, that should be enough to at least make a postseason. With the expanded playoffs, there's no reason that the Cincinnati Bengals should be begging for the final wild card spot. They should be a 10-win team every year. It should be. The front office should know that, the coaching staff should know that, and the players know that. It should be a 10-win team every season going forward. Yeah, every once in a while you have a bad year. 100%. Last year, that was our bad year. And you still won 9 games.
You're about 500, yeah.
Joe Burrow was out. You fought. You lost. Bad season. Back-to-back bad seasons when you have a healthy Joe Burrow, unacceptable. It can't happen. It can't be excused. So if you're Zack Taylor, I think there's more pressure on there's more pressure on Zack Taylor than there's probably been on any coach in this city, maybe ever, to win games. So he's got to figure it out. He doesn't have the defense for it. It sucks. It sucks that he's in this position. The defense, as much as I'd like to say, it's like I get into Twitter fights because there's some people that say, well, Zack Taylor doesn't pay attention to the defense. That's not his job. He's an offensive guy. It's his job a little bit. I mean, it's his job a little bit to have two sides of the ball that are both fully able to play at a high level.
Real quick, to chime in on that, I'm not comparing the Browns to the Bengals, but Kevin Stefanski gave up play calling duties, and I rolled my eyes at that. I didn't think that would matter. Ken Dorsey takes over the play calling responsibilities. The Browns were one of the league leaders in penalties, averaging about 6 penalties a game or something. From what they've cut that in half since he's given up play calling responsibilities, and he's been able to focus more on the whole team aspect of it. They've cut their penalties per game in half over the last 3 weeks. Now, a little bit different scenario than what you're talking about, but I used to roll my eyes at that, giving up play calling, like Ryan Day with Ohio State. I've always thought, what's the point of giving up play? That's what got him, his ability to call plays and his offensive mind is what got him the job. I've said the same thing about Zack Taylor, Kevin Stefanski, others. They got the job because of their offensive mind and their offensive philosophy. So taking the play calling away, I don't think matters. But I've seen it work with Ohio State so far. I've seen it work with Cleveland in a small sample size, just seeing some small mistakes be cleaned up. I think I'd be wrong to say that there would be no point in giving up play calling or making some kind of adjustment if you're Zack Taylor, just because he's only focused on the offense at this point from the perception of others.
The thing is, though, if he agrees to that, then the value of him certainly goes down amongst
point, yeah, like I said about Ryan Day, Stefanski, and others.
It's like his value amongst the organization, because everybody right now, the reason he is still like a revered coach is because of his quote unquote offensive, mastermind, being able to be that person. I don't think that he is that person, and I think that's where the disconnect is. He got the Bengals to a Super Bowl, so at some point you do have to respect that. But there's also added pressure year after year when you have a top 5 quarterback in the NFL and you don't win games. Back-to-back seasons of missing the playoffs is pretty brutal, if we're going to be honest. I know Joe Burrow got hurt. I know that's a part of the game. But this year, with the schedule that the Bengals had, and I can't stress it enough, there is zero excuse to miss the playoffs. I don't care how bad the defense is. I don't. Not when this schedule is this easy. How many uncompetitive teams are on this schedule? And you lose one of them on opening day, on the first game of the year, right off the bat, playing from behind the 8 ball yet again. It just can't happen. So Zack Taylor has a ton of pressure on him. I'm hoping that he can get himself out of it. I would love to come out on this show and say that I'm wrong about Zack Taylor, and Zack Taylor is a good coach. I would love to say that. But until I see it, I'm not going to say it. And I need him to do it again. I need him to make the playoffs. I need him to have one of those streaks. But to Jacob's point, I don't know if this team is able to do that. This is a different team than it was in 2021 and 2022 and 2023. This is it's a different team. You have Joe Burrow, that's great. Your defense is so bad that it's laughable. Well, I don't know if you can overcome the world's worst defense.
One thing that I do think is important to bring up during the Zack Taylor conversation, and I know it's little bits and pieces, but it's a lot of anti-Zack Taylor. And I think one of the biggest things that you can 100% point to coaching that it affects, because you can argue about play calls and whether or not that's the players on the field or not. The one thing you can 100% point to is the discipline of the team. That comes from the coaches. The Bengals are distantly the least penalized team in football. Distantly.
And that's been a trend throughout the Zack Taylor era.
And the offense is a top 12 to 15 offense.
Yeah.
Top 10 passing offense. Bottom outside the top 20 rushing offense, so you average those out.
They have the quarterback leading the league in passing yards, touchdowns.
That's
receiving.
what I mean. It's like, are we really thinking that the offensive play caller and head coach is the problem when it's a disciplined team with an elite offense? I don't think so. I think there's a lot of bigger problems on this
average
team.
defense away from us not even talking about Zack Taylor.
100%.
I can't believe he ran
average
it there
defensive players away.
Yeah. So.
What was that sigh, Casey?
Oh, yes. Did anyone hear that?
There was a sigh from Casey across the room.
He's cold again. He's cold. Did you see
putting that jacket on?
I might put that jacket on.
Jump back in, Casey. Jump in.
I don't know, guys. Yeah, you're looking at the stats and saying that that's a great offense. Sure. I mean, Joe Burrow is playing hero ball for half the season, and most of those yards came from the Ravens, where, I mean, Jamar and him just completely take over a game. I'm not giving any credit to this offense whatsoever.
So Zack Taylor gets blamed when the offense struggles, but when it's great, it's not any of his credit.
Just look at the Ravens game, and you tell me who had the great offensive performance. Was it the coaching, or was it Joe Burrow and Jamar?
Some pretty good play calling in that game. Pretty great play calling in that game.
Most of the touchdowns that he threw were from him scrambling around outside of the
A
structure of the
72-yard
offense, and
backside look post to Jamar Chase,
most
schemed up to be wide open on a bomb.
Like I said,
I think it's one of the best play calling games of Zack Taylor's career.
Most of them were Joe Burrow playing hero ball.
Why did he have to run? Because Zack Taylor asked him to, or because we have one of the worst O-lines in football right now?
Have a better structure then. Have a better offensive game plan for that.
I think that was one of the best play calling games of Zack Taylor's career. I was
I
thrilled after Thursday
am
night.
not giving him credit because most of the time Joe
Then
Burrow
I don't
makes
think
him
you
look
should
much
ever
better
give
than
him
he is.
blame, which is fine, but be consistent.
I'm not giving him blame. I'm not going to sit here and act like he is the reason why this offense is ticking. That's not it. It's Joe and Jamar.
And that's fine. But when it struggles, don't ever say it's Zack Taylor's fault. Because if it's great and it's not his credit, then you can't say that.
I haven't.
Not you, everyone.
I haven't.
If you're not going to give Zack Taylor credit when it's great, then I don't know how you can kill him when it's bad. Because that's all people do. When the offense scores 17 points against the Giants, it's Zack Taylor can't scheme up against a bad team. Then you score 40 against the Ravens, and it's all Joe and Jamar.
I mean, it is pretty much, in my eyes, it's pretty much all Joe Jamar. The most blame that I have is just the roster construction, but I hate bringing that up every single time we have this debate because it's just tired at this point. Like, we already know we don't have the players on this team to, like, get us over the hump where we need to be. And T has been out for a significant part of this year, and what does it look like when T's out there? Does it look much better structurally? Maybe. I don't know. Same with Orlando Brown being out for however many weeks it's been now. So I get it. I like to put a lot of focus on the players now at this point because regardless how we feel, I think the coaching staff, at least offensively, probably is in a good spot because of, like you mentioned, they're just going to look at the numbers and say, like, yeah, this is an efficient offense, when really it's just Joe and Jamar being great. I don't think that's hard to do. I think what separates them being, like, fantastic, right, is being able to figure out the run game. And they haven't been able to do that. Now, do we have the players to do it? I don't know. Probably not. But my point is, when we talk about this team and how good they are offensively, I think we're really just saying Joe and Jamar are great. And that's not hard to do. I mean, they're not like top 3 offense in the league. They're like a top 10 offense with a bottom of the league running game. So I don't know, man. Like I
think
feel
being
like
a top 10 offense with the receiving core we've been working with all year, Chase Brown and Zach Moss in the backfield and the least athletic O-line in football, is a resounding success.
Yeah, but that's mainly because of Joe and Jamar being so great. Like I don't know how much.
I choose to give a little bit of credit to the guy who's calling the offensive plays when the offense scores a lot of points. I don't think that's crazy to say.
I don't think it's hard to have an efficient offense when you have Joe and Jamar. That's what I'm getting at.
So, take Andy Reid out of the equation. I think, like, people nitpick on some things they don't like about Zack Taylor's play calling, but, like, Green Bay does that with LaFleur. I think a lot of, obviously Buffalo does that all the time with whoever calls their plays. I mean, that's one reason they chase Dorsey out. Now, to be fair, since Dorsey's left, Josh Allen all of a sudden knows how to not turn the football over. So
yeah.
there's something there. But there's been a lot of good offenses that I think nationally we don't hear people complain about the play. I think sometimes complaining about play calling is more regionalized. Like, it's more localized to your team's fan base. We come in here, man, Green Bay looked good. We're not stripping it down to, oh, man, that play call that LaFleur had, I mean, that was horrible. I think we do that as fans more with our team. We nitpick our team more than anyone else. Let me ask you, I've never heard Zack Taylor's name be mentioned on national shows criticizing him for the Bengals' struggles throughout the season, outside of saying the Bengals' head coaching job could be open if they lose with Joe Burrow. But they're not stripping it down and narrowing it down to Zack Taylor's ability to coach. So that's why, Mike, I think sometimes we get pigeonholed into this. we do that fan speak where we nitpick our team way more than anybody else. I don't think anyone outside of Cincinnati is truly concerned about Zack Taylor's ability to run this team. And not a shot at you. I just think it's very fanboyish to just give Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase all the credit, because I don't think that they could do what they do if they weren't put in a position to be able to do that. Mike McCarthy, is another one. Mike McCarthy reminds me of Zack Taylor a bit, where when the Dallas Cowboys have had the top 3 offense in the league the last 3 years, not this year. Mike McCarthy's on the hot seat every year. Everyone wants him out, right? Like, Mike McCarthy's the only other coach I could think of that a team has success and everyone says, but it's not because of him. That's the only coach I could think of that's been kind of put in that spot.
Well, what you're doing is positioning Taylor as putting Joe in a position for success. I'm saying the opposite. Joe is putting Taylor in a position of success with his play and his performance on the field. Zack Taylor calls a play, and Joe Burrow makes it happen. Right?
Joe Burrow makes the play that Zack Taylor called happen? Correct.
But I'm saying based off of his great performance, based off of his play, it makes Zack Taylor look like a genius. Okay? That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that Zack Taylor is horrible by any stretch of imagination. I'm just saying that we're giving him a lot of praise when I don't think he deserves a lot of praise. I don't think he deserves a lot of... It's basically
every play caller.
It's a David Bell conversation. I don't think it really matters a whole lot when you have Joe Burrow out there.
So every play caller in offenses that have great talent doesn't matter. So why do we want Ben Johnson in Cincinnati? Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Why does his play calls matter?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't think that.
I think coaching in football matters vastly more.
Drastically.
I think if you look at the I was going to say San Diego Chargers. If you look at the Los Angeles Chargers this year, they have 5 more wins this season than they did last season at this very point. They've lost players.
I don't think it matters.
They've lost players, like key players, and they're 5 wins better than they were last year. I think Jim Harbaugh. I think he's one of the best coaches in the league. That matters.
Yeah, but that's not specifically play calling. That's scheme. That's deciding to go in a whole different direction with your team. Like, they decided to become a more running-based offense, which.
But what did they do to become that? They brought in Greg Roman to call the offensive plays. And he calls a more physical offense that fits what they want to do. Play calling matters.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, based off of Zack Taylor's offense, and I think you would agree with this, that a lot of the onus of how well the team does is based off of how the star players perform.
But I think
and
that's
when they're not out there.
Any team in football.
Okay, well, then you agree with me in some bit of fashion then, because the
Lions'
I think
play calling does matter.
The Lions' offense is not the same offense without Jahmyr Gibbs, without David Montgomery, without Amon-Ra St. Brown.
I'm arguing that pulling the play caller makes just as big of a difference as pulling a lower tier star player. You pull Ben Johnson from that lineup, or you pull David Montgomery from that lineup, I think it affects the Lions' offense in a very similar way.
And I would say it doesn't affect the Bengals' offense in a significant way.
But my question is, if you want to fire Zack Taylor because of the play calling, we then want to go get a play caller from another team.
I didn't say to fire
Not
him.
you. Anyone who's hating on Zack Taylor for the play calling. You want to fire him because the offense is putting up numbers and it's just the star players that's doing it. This is an argument I've heard from a ton of people. But you want to go out and get every name on the list of people we want to get is just an offensive coordinator at another elite offense with elite talent. Like, no one's asking for the Vrabels or the Belichicks to come in here because I don't think anyone thinks that that's the fix of new modern NFL. You want young, offensive talent.
But maybe you do.
That's what I'm saying.
Not mocking you, but like based on your theory, then go get a Vrabel or a Belichick because you don't need a good OC because Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase
that would be a different argument. But the people that argue to fire Zack Taylor and go get a Ben Johnson or a Bobby Slowick, that drives me up a wall. Because what's the difference? Zack Taylor is calling an elite offense right now. The Bengals offense is elite. How much credit you want to give to Zack Taylor? I guess that we can debate that. But the Bengals offense is elite with Zack Taylor as the play caller right now.
I'm not going to judge the play calling because I think it is all based off of can you as a player do your job efficiently?
Yes.
Right? It's all about that. But when it comes to scheme and coming up with the identity of the team, that's where I have a problem with Zack Taylor. And I think many people confuse the two together because they just look at the game and say, like, oh, that was a terrible play call. Well, part of it is because their identity is throwing the ball 85% of the time.
Right.
So, like, I think in that way, that's why I want a Ben Johnson, because I think he's more
The
balanced.
overall scheme.
But yeah,
and
I'm
that's
not,
fair.
And I think that's where the conversation gets muddied.
That
right?
is 100%. If you're talking about an overall scheme, then that is absolutely fair.
And then then it also kind of points to like the whole team as a whole, like the identity of the team as a whole, which falls strictly on the leadership of the team, the head coach, offensive coordinator, defense coordinator. For me, the problems all lie really on defense. I think
exactly where I'm at.
I think we put a lot of. Yeah, we're getting ready to go to a break here. So the last thing I'll say is a lot of the onus is on the structure of the roster and what they decided the identity of the team would be. And that's the biggest issue of the Bengals right now, is that both of them are just really, really bad right now.
You give any coach these 22 players, they're not winning a ton of games.
Correct. That's what I'm getting at.
Fair enough. And now I'm selfish because when I'm arguing, I don't care about the clock. And now I'm over here and I'm just like, all right, guys, enough. My bad. But get him. Get him. All right, Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. We'll be right back. All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing. Elliot, you there?
I'm there.
And Jacob Tisser.
I'm here.
Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. The Bengals are driving everyone mad, man. They just need to get a win on Sunday. And, like, this is the kind of.
I kind of want to see what happens if they don't.
Oh my God!
Like, what happens in here if they don't? Like, I think we all just might kill each other.
Are you cheering for chaos?
Like Thursday.
I don't want Zack Taylor to be gone because of play calling. I want Zack Taylor to be gone because of results. And that's
fair.
Just I have a higher expectation for the Bengals than maybe I should. But to credit Casey, I do think there is a part of this team that is Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase versus the world. I think that's a pretty solid explanation. I think if you have two guys that are able to put the team on their back, you're going to have a chance to win pretty much any game. And I think the coach benefits from it. But to be fair to Jacob, certainly that those two can't make plays like they do without at least some semblance of an offensive plan that Zack Taylor created. My issue is the defense is so terrible, and I think we look at the head coaching job now in today's NFL where it's like, all right, well, as long as the offense looks good, or as long as one side of the football looks good, where that coach's specialty lies, then we'll give up on the other side and we'll blame the DC or OC, depending on if it's a offensive or defensive head coach. Like, I don't think Zack Taylor should be excused because the defense looks absolutely atrocious. That's my thing.
That's the only reason I only get mad when people are saying we need to fire Zack Taylor because of the play calling.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason why that's the part that gets me mad, because there's plenty of other reasons to fire Zack Taylor if you want to. Just use one of those and we're fine.
Like, I'll make fun of the Pittsburgh Steelers because I don't like that franchise. That franchise is fantastic. At every phase of the football, they are fantastic. Their special teams unit's electric. Nobody has a good special teams unit that you notice. Like the Steelers
30th.
do. Huh?
Bengals are 30th.
In special teams?
Yeah.
That's about right.
Tough.
Who's the special teams coach?
Darren Simmons, probably the interim coach if they fire Zack Taylor in the middle of the season.
So it's just I think at some point you have to have higher expectations when you pay your quarterback $55 a year. The Bengals are at that point. If you fail to make the playoffs this season, when there's pretty much zero excuses to miss, that's when we have, in my opinion, a conversation about Zack Taylor. It hasn't happened yet, so I'm not saying fire him yet, but there needs to be change. I'm hoping that change happens before the season. If it does not, then we look at Zack Taylor and I say, all right, it's just not getting done. And same thing with David Bell. I didn't think David Bell should be fired, at least as of this very second, but I certainly understand that if you look at his win-loss record, there's nothing you can really say to help his case.
Yeah, and I think I've thrown this out before. I can't think of a team with an elite quarterback that's missed the playoffs with that quarterback being healthy pretty much the entire season.
It certainly doesn't happen often.
Like last year, the Cardinals dug themselves in a hole early because they didn't have – Kyler Murray came back with, I think, like a month left. And it was weird, or maybe a month and a half. it was weird watching an elite quarterback play on a bad team. And the reason I say that is you usually don't see elite quarterbacks play on bad teams for a long stretch of time.
Yeah.
This would be potentially 2 straight years missing the playoffs with Joe Burrow as your quarterback. Obviously, last year he's out injured. They probably don't miss the playoffs last year. And in fact, they don't. They don't miss the playoffs last year if he's not injured for the back half of the season. But I can't think of a time where a quarterback of Joe Burrow's caliber plays an entire season and misses the playoff.
Drew Brees.
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
the only one.
He had a couple.
That's a good one.
Because
Okay.
that's the
But that's the
nightmare
comp that you're-
comparison people are
yeah.
bringing up for the Bengals is that 2010's Saints team, not just offense.
Yeah.
An offense with a 5,000-yard quarterback and a defense
Yeah.
that allows 40 points a game, and you just cross your fingers to get into the wild card because, well, you have Drew Brees playing quarterback. You never
Yep.
know what can happen. Seems like we're in the same boat now.
So we got one. It just doesn't happen.
No, and I think that's
We're-
why Drew Brees was the biggest, what could have been guy.
Yeah.
Because he kept putting up all those stats and could never get the playoff run except for the one Super Bowl, obviously.
You got
but-
one. Listen, if you get one, I'm going to be honest. If Joe Burrow gives me one, I don't care anymore.
Nope.
I don't care. So if
We
that's
just come in here and break down the film after a loss
Correct.
of the Super Bowl that we won.
correct, every
Every loss.
loss going forward
Yeah.
will just be a highlight of the Super Bowl.
That's right.
And Phillip Rivers also had a few seasons where, I mean, I don't know
Well,
if
Phillip
that's the
Riv-
same
Well, they made it.
level of
They missed it
players.
the one year where they had the number 1 offense and the number 1 defense.
Something like that.
God,
They had the
that's
number 1
right.
offense and the
I
number 1
forgot
defense in the
about that.
NFL. And what was it? 2010, 2011, and the Chargers missed the playoffs because they had the number 32 special teams.
Special teams don't matter.
Missed a ton of kicks, muffed
Oh, they
kickoffs,
do.
bad punts.
Phillip Rivers, though, are we putting Joe Burrow's? How do you guys view Phillip Rivers? By the way,
I think he's one of the most underrated quarterbacks of all time.
So when I say Joe Burrow, a quarterback of his caliber, missing the playoffs so healthy, that's a fair
I
comparison.
would
on
not take a slight at you saying Phillip Rivers.
Okay, that's fair. No, and I'm on the fence on that. As far as looking at that, I'm like, I've never been anti-Phillip Rivers. When Phillip Rivers was playing at a high level, I had no problem with teams wanting to kick the tires
Yeah.
on him. The Colts went and got him for a bit because they love old, washed veteran quarterbacks.
I think in this new era of quarterbacks in the NFL, the new crop of quarterbacks, the Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, CJ, I guess you could throw Caleb, Jaden, all these rookies in there as well. I think the 2 options for Joe Burrow at this point are Drew Brees or Phillip Rivers
Boy,
when you look at that shake. Because I think you got Brady, obviously, in Mahomes. And I think you probably have Peyton Manning and Josh Allen when you're talking about the stats and the MVPs and stuff along those lines.
where are you putting Lamar?
Lamar, probably Rodgers, 4 MVPs. Can he get 1 Super Bowl? Maybe.
Fair.
We'll see. Rodgers got 1, but it's because he had a great defense.
that.
Maybe that's the same, system that can work out for Lamar. I think the options for Joe Burrow are: does he get 1 and he's Drew Brees, or does he get none and he's Phillip Rivers?
pretty heartbreaking. To
Both
be
Hall of
honest.
Fame quarterbacks, in my opinion.
Yeah, but respectfully, I don't care about a Hall of Fame quarterback if he doesn't win a Super Bowl. I love Joe Burrow. I think he's going to win a Super Bowl. I just hope it's in Cincinnati.
You hope. Because let's be clear, this team has gotten worse every year since getting to that Super Bowl. And
I
do
don't
you
know-
have
I don't
faith
know
that
if
they
they
can
got-
build that back up?
The year after the Super Bowl, they were pretty damn good.
I think that team was better.
I think the year after the Super Bowl, that team was a pretty good team.
Fair. Because I remember heading into that year saying Joe Burrow had to capitalize
Yeah.
on that. So that second AFC Championship run,
But
I
again-
said that would be the best roster he plays on moving forward. And I got ripped for
was.
that. And I was right for once. I mean,
This
I'm
was
one
supposed
for
to
saying,
be.
But again- but
This
again-
was supposed to be.
This is how the Bengals have now operated while having to pay all these players, and that's where you're seeing the issue, because they haven't had to do this.
They didn't take
They've-
advantage of that window at all.
At all.
I think that's about as bad a job of any other team out there. They're of taking advantage of a rookie quarterback's window, or of as far as and not just Joe Burrow's contract. Like they're
Should
about
have
to pay
attacked
Jamar
Jamar
Chase.
Chase's rookie window as well.
Yep. So like they on top of that, it's not like they paid Jesse Bates because we're gonna pay Bates because we don't have to pay Burrow for quite a few years and Chase not for a few years and T will figure out what we'll do with him in a few years. Mixon's not a ton of money. They restructured that. Like then where the hell did the money go?
Yeah.
Like, this is where I think
That's
we need
a
to
good-
get.
that's a
we
good
need
question.
to get. I mean, I think Vivek and I think we need to get our guy.
Yeah,
from
we saw.
Ultimate-
Hey,
I'm
he's
just
a
saying.
bomber.
I think they need to get
He can
involved
fix that
here.
front office.
That should be our cherry on top today. His high school commencement speech.
Oh, it was a good one.
I saw that was going around Twitter yesterday. I
Valedictorian.
listened to a couple minutes.
I mean, you asked where the money's going. Like 30 of it is going into free agents that are playing out of position and the
But
worst.
this year, I mean, like over the last 3 years, where did
Yeah.
that money? I mean, obviously
I mean, this
Orlando Brown Jr., You went and you took a swing and a miss on the Cowboy, Lyle Collins. You took a swing there. I'm not mad at those swings. They finally, I think they waited 2 years. I think they were a little late in trying to invest into the offensive line. They finally waved the white flag and said, we can't draft and develop this damn position.
I mean, like this year they're projected like something like 45 or 50 million in cap for the offseason. It's like that money could have been, shifted over to some of other contracts that might have helped us out, like Jesse Bates. I don't know. But, yeah, I mean, it is kind of strange looking at where the money's actually gone. A lot of it has gone to a lot of swings and misses. Lots of swings and misses, especially this season. It's really hurt us this year.
Last thing on the Bengals on the way out. Well, not on the way out. We have one more, but it'll be a short one because we went a little long on some of these. This came out yesterday about T. Higgins.
Yeah.
I thought this was interesting. So there's some reports coming out that there is little to no chance that T. Higgins stays with the Bengals in 25. He's expected to leave in free agency this offseason. Now, this is a group of guys here that has spent a lot of time on this conversation. Everyone in the chat, everyone has opinions on this. This isn't surprising. This isn't breaking news to us. It's not as. I think there's always the option of them tagging him one more time. I don't know if that's going to go over well.
Yeah.
I don't think that leads to good vibes if they do that. But this is according to ESPN. At just 25 years old, Higgins is expected to draw significant interest from many teams with an AAV nearing $30 million. We've talked about what his value could potentially be if he hits the free agent market. We've talked about, of course, why some teams might shy away because of the fact that he is injury prone. By the way, did practice this week, is questionable, right, for Sunday?
Questionable, hasn't practiced yet. Only walkthroughs.
Oh, walkthrough. I mean, okay. So, I mean,
ran
that's
up
better
the
than,
hill.
yeah.
He did. That is big
jogged up the
news.
hill.
He jogged up the hill yesterday.
And he was in Jersey. He was in his jersey.
Did not practice.
Getting closer. So, no, obviously the question marks with him are not his ability. It's actually whether or not he can, his availability, I guess, if we're going to use that overused phrase all the time. Your best ability is your availability. Obviously, the worst ability he has is his availability. $30 million. You've been saying it forever. A team will take a chance. A team will ignore the injury proneness. ESPN put out their list of top free agents already for heading into next season. T. Higgins is the number one free agent at the top of that list. I don't know if that means is that a weak free agent list if he's the number one free agent? I don't mean that's a shot at him. I'm just saying
I don't think so. I mean, I think T. Higgins would be one of the best wide receiver free agents at his age in racing.
And the value
He's
that you
a
would
top,
get.
memory. I mean,
he's a top what? Top 15 wide receiver?
Even with the injuries, he's top 20. I'd say. Yeah, I don't think, I'll look it up right now just to make sure I'm not missing anyone, but I think T. Higgins being at the top of the free agent market is pretty representative of what he's been able to do in his career.
I don't know what goes on behind the scenes when teams talk to free agents that miss a bunch of time the previous year. Do you think T. Higgins and his agent, and this is all speculation, I know nothing. Just want to clarify. Do you think they say to they're like, all right, so we want to pay you, but we're afraid that you're not going to be healthy? Do you think the rationale they will give would be well, the team wasn't very good, we didn't want to risk it? Do you think that comes into play, or do you think there's just I was hurt?
I think T. Higgins is losing more from these injuries than the Bengals and Bengals fans are.
Okay.
I think he is hemorrhaging dollars right now from contenders. I think this amount of missed games for soft tissue injuries, which has been something he's dealt with his entire career, I think this is bumping that $27 to $30 million contract that we're talking about here down to the teams that are really bad.
Yeah.
The Panthers, the Patriots, the really bad teams with young quarterbacks, trying to capitalize on that rookie window, getting an elite receiver for your young quarterback. I might even throw the Commanders in there. I think they're going to be pretty. I know they're not a bad team, but I think they're going to be pretty desperate to get a top-level wide receiver to pair with Terry McLaurin on this rookie contract for Jaden Daniels. So I would expect that level of team, that level of organization to still give him this big-time money. If he was able to play all year this year, the number one team I'd be circling free agency is the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
I think he's knocked himself down on Super Bowl watch, not necessarily money watch, if that makes sense.
How much are you willing to pay for him? If that number
in Cincinnati?
If that number goes down, which it will, if that number goes down by the end of this season, and T. Higgins starts to renegotiate maybe with the Bengals, and you start to see some conversations pick up, do you think $20 million? Do you think you would sign that? Spotrac,
NFL contract website, has his market value for this upcoming free agent cycle listed as $18.9 million. I think that is incredibly low. I think if I'm the Bengals, I'm signing him anywhere between 18 and 22. I'm comfortable signing that contract. I think he's going to get 25 to 28.
Okay.
And I would not sign that contract. I would absolutely give T. Higgins, the wide receiver, 25 to 28. I'm not playing this game, though.
No.
With quads on a Friday, they leave you out for 4 weeks. Not for $25 million. Not when I'm already planning on paying Jamar Chase. Not when I've already paid Joe Burrow. You have to get the Jamar Chase deal done first. That's the first thing to do. And then I think the no-brainer move is to tag him again and trade him.
So, and then the other thing, as far as keeping an eye on possible destinations for that number right there, the teams that were going after Brandon Ayuk. You know, that Cleveland was trying to go after Brandon Ayuk. If I'm T, I stay away from Cleveland because it's a mess right now, especially quarterback. I mean, they have more holes than I thought. Pittsburgh, I mean, that would be a pain. That would be hard to stomach if Pittsburgh. I mean, because Pittsburgh, and again, I mock Pittsburgh because they're always at every big name wide receiver. Devontae Adams, Brandon Ayuk, I mean, Amari Cooper. They got rumored for all these names. But obviously, anyone that was in on the Brandon Ayuk conversations, I would put into the T. Higgins role as well. As far as that goes. But nonetheless, that was just an updated figure that was thrown out. The AAV nearing 30 mil is what caught my attention. I thought that was high, just considering what we've already discussed, just the injuries and how banged up he's been nonetheless. All right, we'll wrap things up on the radio side of the show when we come back. This is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Well, Jacob and Casey's fight has set us, back. But
They had a big fight.
Yeah, they had a huge fight.
I don't know if it was a fight. I think it was just we were mutually agreeing on a concept and ideas.
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, that's
Because I think we eventually came to an agreement on it. Yeah.
We did.
Yeah, I think we all decided that play calling doesn't matter and Zack Taylor should be fired because the offense looks bad.
That's
what
right.
we decided.
That is what we decided.
That's what we decided.
But, okay, no, it wasn't a fight. It was just a tiff.
It was a tiff.
So just to be clear, we got another must-win on Sunday?
Yes.
Yeah, I think
Or is it a
this
can't lose?
This is the only must-win for
Okay.
the rest of the year.
All right. So I got another question.
Ooh.
How many must-wins, can't loses are we going to have to go through this year?
So the Bengals are currently pardon me, this is Francesa.
Okay.
Bengals are currently 4-3 in must-win games.
All right.
You have to stay above 500 in must-wins.
Wait, 4-3?
Yeah, in their 7 must-win games this year.
Wait, we were the 7.
Well, I mean, the Chiefs were a must-win after you lost to
You're
the
right.
Patriots.
You're right.
And then after you're 0-2, you have to win Week 3.
Correct.
So you lost both of those. You're 0-2 in
Okay.
must-wins. 0-3, can't go 0-4. First must-win win against the Panthers.
All
You're now
right.
1-2. I don't think that Ravens game was a must-win, but after losing it, you had to beat the Giants and the Browns.
Okay.
So that brings you to 5 must-win games. Eagles certainly must win. Ravens certainly must win. There's your 7. There's your 4-3.
How about that?
That's great coaching by Zack Taylor. 500, baby.
I mean, you're above 500 and can't lose must-win games.
When Zack Taylor's
Would you
back is
argue
against
that-
the wall, that's when he.
Would
that's
you
when he's at
argue
his
the
best.
Patriots Week 1 was a can't lose or a must win?
Well, if we want to do can't lose record, I mean, that record is terrible.
was a
Our
can't
record
watch.
in can't lose games, we're 0-4 in can't lose games. We haven't won a single can't lose games. We're just lucky to be getting some of the wins and the must wins to keep us afloat.
Was the Raiders game a must win?
Absolutely.
That was a must win. So that counts. All the 4 wins were must wins.
Well, that's how you get to 4-3. All 4 wins have to be must wins.
So we got to get to 5-3 on must win.
That's right. That's
But
right.
I'd argue this is more of a can't lose.
Okay, well, if this is a can't lose, we're in a bad spot. Because the Bengals have not been able to win a can't lose in about 3 years.
Yeah, I know. That's what scares me. That's what
It's all in
scares
how
me.
you frame
I mean,
it.
the Super Bowl and the AFC Championship were both can't loses.
Yeah, this is a can't lose, I think.
All right, well, this was a very short segment. We packed a lot in there, but we're done. We're done, radio listeners. We appreciate you. Until tomorrow, this has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. All right, look at that, 11:39.
Magic.
21 minutes to murder, right there.
Sorry?
Excuse me?
People say, oh, we got 21 minutes to kill. I just changed it to murder.
Mucked up.
And it clearly worked. It got your attention, you know?
Yeah,
Ours
it did.
among the
Murder
most
these final
menacing
21
sounds.
minutes.
What was some of our buy or sells? Because this is back-to-back
No,
days.
we're going to push it again.
I don't want to keep pushing our buy or sells.
I like
though.
pushing the buy or sells because when we look at the list, like 3 days after when we were supposed to do it, half
Yeah.
of them aren't even applicable anymore.
I would like to see him.
But I did such a bad job with these that they're actually pretty good
Are
today
they?
and possibly tomorrow. But
Good.
yeah, we'll do a few. We'll do
I love
a few.
that.
We talked about it earlier in the open of the show, but Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. I'm excited about
I
that
am.
fight coming up this weekend.
I'm thrilled.
Buy or sell? Let me go back and
The
read it
fight?
because I forgot. My bad. The Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight. Buy or sell the match ending via knockout.
I'm going to buy knockout because I've bet Mike Tyson knockout.
I like it. I'm going to sell it because all these big fights that everybody comes in to watch always ends in decision, and it's always
Jake Paul
anticlimactic.
has won most of his fights by knockout, right?
Jake Paul, I don't count Jake Paul as a big fight. Any fight that he's ever had, I don't count as a big fight, except for this one because it's Mike Tyson.
Okay.
So this will go to decision, and I imagine it will go to Mike Tyson.
You think?
I think
if it goes to decision, it's certainly going to Jake Paul.
Really?
Yeah. Because there's no benefit for Mike Tyson winning this fight for like the long term.
that's fair.
Jake Paul beats Mike Tyson, he can get some like big time fights.
Okay, Casey, you gonna tune into Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul, Netflix?
Free?
I was invited to watch it at
Really?
someone's house. Yeah.
Is it free?
I don't know
Well,
if
it's free if you have.
But
the
on
subscription.
Netflix.
Yeah, if you
like
have the
ESPN,
subscription. Yeah.
UFC on ESPN Plus, you have to pay the $80 on top of the ESPN Plus.
Yeah, it's nonsense. I think it's free.
That'd be big.
Free being paying for it monthly.
If it is no extra price, there is nearly a 200% increase in the chances that I watch it.
Okay, is it Is it actually live,
think
or
so.
is it has been recorded?
I think it's live.
Okay, all right.
They're doing
doing-
Netflix starting in 25. They'll have WWE Monday Night Raw live every Monday.
Really?
That rocks.
So they started doing a lot of these live. I mean, they did the live comedy show. Who did? Which comedian did they do the live comedy show for? It might have been Kevin Hart.
Brady's roast was live.
That
I
was
don't.
live.
I don't think that was live. I think that was recorded. No.
There was a
Brady's
there-
roast?
Yeah.
That was live.
That was live.
The roast was live. There was a stand-up comedian, and I can't remember who it was, that did a live one on it. So they've done some of these live features that they're basically testing. And again, Netflix is going to continue to roll these out.
Christmas Day games.
The NFL games coming up. Obviously, who are the NFL? Who are the Christmas Day games again?
The Steelers versus Chiefs, I know is one of them, and then I don't know the others. But I
I'm
know
actually more excited for that than I probably was
Chiefs
2
is
months
one.
ago. So
Steelers Chiefs. I have had a bet on the Chiefs spread in that game since that game was announced.
ooh, so that
I think I got it at 7.5, which is
Love
going to
that.
be much lower now, which
Love
kind of
that.
stinks, but it is what it is. Yeah, Chiefs are going to roll them on Christmas Day. What else we got on Christmas Day? I love that the NFL just told the NBA that they can go, in the back. They've had Christmas for 3 decades. The NFL's like, we'll take
normally
it
I'd
now.
be mad, but the NBA doesn't deserve anything. They deserve it. Normally I would, because I used to love that. I mean, I remember as a kid growing up, and I'm older than you guys, but like when Shaquille O'Neal returned to Los Angeles, like I remember, like I could not wait Christmas Day, end of the day. I told my family, kick rocks. I ran to the back, and all I wanted to, like Christmas Day games, LeBron's return to Cleveland, like they did so many. There's always these cool storylines on Christmas Day, and they always do these big matchups, and it used to mean something. It used to matter. But these athletes have just told you they don't care about playing, so why should you care about watching? The NBA deserves to have the NFL come in and overtake it. Go NFL. I'm all for it.
I'll never forget the Alvin Kamara 6 touchdown game.
The Alvin Kamara 6 touchdown
On
game?
Christmas Day,
When was that?
2020.
Really?
Yeah. He was on my fantasy team. It was incredible. He wore red and green cleats, got fined like $100,000 every time he ran the ball.
Was that against Dallas? Did he jump into the?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it was against Dallas.
I felt like
It was in New Orleans. I forget. But that was a great game. We have Baltimore-Houston as well.
That's a good
on
game,
Christmas
too.
Day. So
It should be good if
Kansas
Houston-
City, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Houston. And then Thursday Night Football the day after Christmas is Seattle, Chicago. Full week of football.
How about that?
That'll be fun.
I hope Houston gets their stuff together just because that matchup should be a good one, but Houston looks so bad.
I am, and I don't want to do it because I love CJ. I think I'm woke on the Texans.
I'm woke on the Texans too.
Like I think they're a bad football team.
They've been hurt.
But those guys aren't coming back.
Yeah.
Nico is.
Well, yeah, but
Nico's a big deal.
Diggs is. Yeah, we'll see. I'm holding my judgment until I see them with Nico, no Diggs, because that was just such a stark change right there. 6 weeks into the season, it's like, oh, you don't have Nico, and you also don't have Stephon Diggs. Like I think if they would have had like a week with Diggs and no Nico, 2 weeks with Diggs and no Nico, and then losing both, and like it wouldn't have necessarily looked as bad as quickly, but to lose to the Jets and then blow that lead to the Lions back-to-back weeks.
They were a half away from going to 7-3 and like being. I mean,
They were a half away from being in best team in the league conversation.
yeah, because I mean, at that point, they weren't even playing good football as of late, and they were still sitting. I mean, to not play your best football and still just be winning football games, including beating the team that everyone deems to be the best team in football, the Detroit Lions at this point, that would have done wonders for the morale of that team. But yeah, like that half really could be the turning point, and not in a good way for them with this. I was very high on the Texans. I said that was the team I picked coming out of the AFC this year. So
I hope they can. I hope they can turn around, and maybe getting Nico back's all they need. Because I mean, we were a week early, but primetime John Mechie touchdown that ripped my heart out. But man, he's getting a little bit of play in that system over there. He's a great player at college, so maybe he'll take some of those Stephon Diggs slot reps.
Over under a half of a playoff win this year for the Texans.
well, they won't play the Browns, so that's gonna make it a little tough.
I'm gonna take the under because if we get in, that's where we're going.
No. If we get to 7, no way. We play Buffalo, no?
I don't think Buffalo's gonna finish the 3.
Let me ask you, which offense
the
scares
2?
you more?
I said
It would be
Houston will
the
finish the 2.
Assuming
Titans, Jags, Dolphins, Titans again.
Yeah, I mean, that is.
The
assuming
AFC South is terrible.
AFC East isn't exactly good either, though.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I still feel like the Titans or Dolphins are gonna sneak them.
I'd rather play the Buffalo Bills than the Texans.
No.
I was just going to
Yeah,
ask which offense. Not keep in mind, not how Joe Burrow and the offense lines up against them, the defenses. From knowing your team's defensive deficiencies, which not quarterback even offense. Which offense scares you more? Assuming Nico's back and healthy, Nico and CJ, or of course Josh Allen and Amari Cooper.
I think it's a far worse matchup to play the Texans because Joe Mixon's going to run it for 38 times
That's a nightmare scenario.
for 400 yards. That'll be the Joe Mixon. Like
But
CJ
James
Stroud.
Cook's just as good.
I think he is just as good, but I think you don't. If you're the Buffalo Bills, there's not a game where you just aren't going to use Josh Allen.
Yeah.
That'll still be the Josh Allen game. I think the Texans are going to run Joe Mixon 38 times in that game for 400 yards.
I'd rather have our offense play inside than in Buffalo in the end of January.
I see. I disagree.
I've seen this Bengals offense torch that Bills defense. So I'm
Bills
good.
defense hasn't been good.
I'm good on that matchup. I've not seen the other way around because
I'm really scared of Buffalo right now. I just think Josh is playing at such an unbelievable level.
Josh Allen's it would be a shootout, but like I'd rather take my chances there than Texans.
But if
are
you
just
get the
gonna have,
Texans in a shootout and they can't run the ball,
I don't think
have
it's.
Stephon
I don't
Diggs.
think it's a shootout with the Texans though. I think it's a run the clock out. They're going to have the ball for 50 minutes.
That'd be brutal.
And when we lose that game 10-7.
Texans defense frustrated Burrow too that day.
Texas defense is good. I also don't think the Bills defense is a joke. Like Greg Rousseau has had a great last 2-3 weeks rushing the passer.
They lose their damn linebacker 2 years in a row, and it impacted them last year. This year, they're pretty solid.
I don't know. I just feel like the Bills are on a different level here.
So Casey, what did you say? Bills or Texans?
I would rather play the Bills than the Texans.
Casey's been in that Buffalo environment.
Yeah, been there. It's not. It's
cold.
It's cold. Yeah, it was snowing.
He can
quite a
handle
bit.
Buffalo, but he can't
That's
sit in
right.
the corner here in the Chatterbox.
Well,
studios.
he was probably bundled up. He was probably better prepared.
I was pretty prepared. I had a couple of what are those? The blue. What beer they got? Blue something.
Labatt Blue?
Yeah, my bat blue.
You're
yeah.
a Labatt guy, huh?
Labatt.
Yeah, I had
react.
probably 4 or 5 of those bad boys.
Oh, I love me some
Keep myself
Labatt.
a little warm there.
Those tailgate lots up there are nuts. It's just like, here's our football stadium where our NFL team plays. Here's 50 miles of parking lot for you to tailgate in. And spoiler alert, the game kicks off in 5 hours. They're already full.
Yeah.
They don't mess around up there. It was crazy.
So buy or sell Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, ending via knockout. That did take a wild turn.
How?
Because we asked about whether it was live or not. Then we talked about all the
Netflix.
live events that Netflix does. And then we talked about
The Christmas
Day
games.
games. Then we talked about NBA, how they don't deserve to have that day
Christmas.
anymore. NFL. And then, it just went. Then the Texans, Ravens. And I said, man, I hope the Texans are playing better.
And then we would play the Texans, and then it was Texans versus Bills.
Yep.
Wow.
Here we are. That's called a weave.
Yeah, if it wasn't me,
That's pretty good.
if it wasn't me, I would ask someone to make a graphic of that path. Because that would be pretty funny. But that would just fall on my shoulders.
I'm just glad that you and Casey aren't fighting anymore because that was just
No, see, that's the thing,
that was
and
brutal.
It poked out a little bit today, but Casey and I do a really good job on the show of making the chat and all the viewers and everyone think we get along. Because, man, we hate each other. And it started to bubble up today a little bit, but we usually do such a good job.
Wait,
So
well, at what
we'll
point
be
did it
better.
bubble up? Was it the... that was... when he had enough.
He had enough.
He's...
Everyone knows when I've had enough.
That's
it's just
right.
The simple. It's just the scoff.
It was that.
It was a scoff.
But it was so loud.
Oh, it's hilarious.
But yeah, everyone right away, everyone's head just snapped and was like, oh, let's see.
It's the most recognizable noise in this offense.
It is. 100% it is.
But he'll switch legs.
Oh, yeah, he does.
The other one
yeah.
will start bouncing.
Yeah.
The half a smile and the puh. I mean, that's
Yeah.
yeah.
Whenever I make eye contact with him over those computer monitors, too, I know something's festering in his brain.
So is it
Elliot
this,
gives
like-
me a
Yeah.
look. When he knows that I have something on my mind, he gives me a look, and he just smiles, and he's like, you want to say something, don't you? Yeah, he gets me every time.
Buy or sell, Shohei Ohtani. He will surpass Barry Bonds for the most MVPs in MLB history. Barry Bonds has 7.
What's he
Shohei's
at, 3?
3.
Shohei's about to win his
It
third.
will be 3.
That's tough.
So,
Good for Barry for not
He's
for
just too-
fighting through fatigue, MVP fatigue, because that didn't
Yeah.
happen.
I feel like people are going to get old with Shohei. I mean, we already saw it one year.
Shohei Ohtani's how old? 30?
Yeah, right.
He's 30 years old.
I feel like he could get there.
When he comes back next year and pitches,
He'll win that one.
I think he'll win that one.
And then the question is, are people done with him?
And then if he he won't change teams. He's on a 10-year, $1
Right.
billion deal. So, I
There's
do
a
think
lot of players in the NL right now that I would say yes to winning one MVP.
I think
I don't think Shohei's got 4 more in him. I think he's got like 2, maybe 3 max.
I think
I'll sell
that
it too.
the biggest threat to Shohei to win MVP at some point over the next couple of years, when you factor in potential MVP fatigue with Shohei, I think the fact that Elly De La Cruz is so drastically different than Shohei, I think that's what makes him a threat to Shohei to win MVP if the Reds play at a high enough level. If the Reds win enough and LA takes another step forward next year, I do think that he would be in that spot to do it because he plays so different. Like
Yeah.
there's no comparisons of the style of play. That's been the problem with baseball for a while. Your Bryce Harpers and obviously your Trouts and a lot of those guys, they all look the same. They all play the same. You know what I mean? All their strengths are the same. That's what drives, for a while, all the players were the same. What I love about baseball right now is just the variety of talent that you have throughout the league. Elly De La Cruz is a superstar for all different reasons than why Shohei is, and I think that's what makes Elly the biggest threat to Shohei in the National League moving forward to win the next MVP that's not his. I do think, though, when you factor in his ability to pitch next year with the defending World Series champs, I think at that point he wins another one. That'll be 4 next year.
Yeah.
But do you think he surpasses Barry Bonds with 7?
No, sell.
Yeah, I'll sell it
I'm
too.
selling. It's too many.
When you think through it, there'd be too many guys that don't win an MVP that I would rather bet on them winning 1 than Shohei winning 4.
It's just he's won so many already so early.
Yeah.
But that could work against you.
He's got 5 years of elite MLB seasons left. 5 years of Hall of Fame level baseball before I think it starts to eventually tail off. At least I think so. He could play till 40 and prove me wrong. But I think he's got 5 years of elite Hall of Fame. I just don't think he can win an MVP in all 5 of those years.
What's the incentive for Shohei to play a long career?
None.
I would say second contract. But he's on a 20-year contract.
How much more money is in it? Like, how much more money does it matter at that point? $700 million wouldn't be enough.
Yeah, yeah.
And all his, by the way, all his money comes after the contract. So, or after.
Right, that's what I mean. Like, I guess not the quicker he retires, quicker he gets his money, but
Yeah.
you don't have to play.
Yeah. There's more incentive to quit.
And by the way, I think he would be the first. I think he'd be the second player to win the MVP in the AL and the NL. Obviously.
Really? Is that
He'd be
right?
the second player. I have to go look up that to confirm that, but I thought I read that the other day that he would be the second player to win the MVP in 2 different divisions, or
Let's
2
see.
different
Frank Robinson.
with the Reds. One of them was with the Reds.
Yeah, Reds and Orioles. So he would be the only second ever. That's crazy.
Yeah. All right. Anything else to add, gentlemen?
No, I think that's it.
I think we're good.
I'm just glad Casey's calmed down. Finally, his face isn't red
All
anymore.
riled up over there.
Yeah. Don't jump over that.
Oh, legs bouncing. Don't get it started again.
All right. So tomorrow, college picks.
Finally.
Or not.
Finally. Or not. I mean,
We never get to him.
Yeah. NFL picks.
Breaking news before we get out of here.
Ooh.
The Rays will play their 2025 season at
It's going to be at that minor league ballpark.
Steinbrenner Field in Tampa, the Yankees spring training complex.
What's that?
So we have
what's that
two-
seat?
we
Not
have
that it
two-
matters in Tampa, but
We have 2 Major League Baseball teams playing at minor league stadiums next year.
That's right.
and we have
Yikes.
even more that play at a minor league level anyway. So
Yikes.
True.
I mean, White Sox, hello. Can they get any? I mean, what do you do if you're the White Sox? What do you do heading in to this offseason? Like, if you're a White Sox fan, we've been a fan of a bad Reds team for a while, but we at least knew that there was some and again, we don't follow the White Sox farm system. I just wonder, do they have like the Ellies of the world? Do they have the prospects that are making
No,
their
they don't.
fans feel like they have something to because
did.
the White Sox just had a great system 2 years ago. Everyone kept saying the White Sox they were going to be the best team in baseball for a while. When you looked at all the talent in their system, I can't believe how much they've plummeted. Tony La Russa came in and just blew it all up.
I mean, in 2020 or whatever that year that was when they went to the Field of Dreams game, that was one of the most exciting young cores in all of baseball, if not the most exciting young
Probably
core
the
in
most
baseball.
exciting young core.
I think Jeff Passan has a famous tweet listing all those guys, and I mean, it gets brought up all the time, and you just hope that that's not what the Reds turn into. There's really 2 options with, at least 2 options we've seen. Obviously, there's more, but 2 options we've seen in the last decade or so that everyone keeps pointing to as Reds fans and people analyzing the Reds. It's with a core this good and this exciting, you either turn into the Orioles, which obviously they haven't gotten to the mountaintop yet, but all those guys coming up and playing at a very, very high level, winning 100 games back-to-back years, competing for the best division in baseball.
Oh God, I just had a.
You're either the Orioles or you're the White Sox, and this whole core goes to waste, and you win nothing,
Yeah.
and you trade everyone in the next 2 years, and
The only
it's all
thing,
over.
the only thing that could get that fan base back in is if Jerry Reinsdorf sells the team. That's the only thing.
He said he's open to it.
I know.
I
So-
forgot he still owned that, to be honest. Until
yeah.
but
But he won't sell the Bills
There's
or
some.
Bulls, and whoever wants to buy the White Sox wants to get in on the Bulls as well, and he won't do anything with the Bulls. At least that's what I read.
God, I hope the parallels between the Reds and White Sox is
Oh,
the
yeah.
same because
There's a lot of 'em.
Because keep in mind, the White Sox. If you go back and look, I know baseball ridiculed the White Sox for hiring Tony La Russa, and I'm not comparing but again, we all feel great about the Terry Francona hiring. But when the White Sox brought La Russa in, they had the same mindset that we do right now with Francona coming in. Man, they're bringing a veteran World Series winning manager in here. They're not doing that to lose baseball games. They lost baseball games, and he didn't last very long. And Francona is a way better manager than La Russa. La Russa is a great manager throughout his time, but obviously the game had passed him by. The game hasn't passed Francona by. But, man, there would be a lot of similarities if this blew up with all the talent that's been called up through the system. You bring in that manager to make you feel like you're going all in. God, I hope that's not the case. I really wish you didn't put that bad thought into my mind.
Yeah, well, it's been in my mind for 2 years, so welcome to the club.
And we end on a low note. Until tomorrow, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers.